best. Karim. What a privilege. Come.
On colors.
Okay, I'm gonna ask. Everybody else is around us, yes. That's a handshake.
You're saying we have to start. Good afternoon. Shall we start? Just start. Then they'll keep quiet.
Yeah, let's just bang that hammer and start.
I've already banged the hammer, so.
Hammer around there. I guess
We'll just. Good afternoon, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. We will continue from where we stopped before lunch. I had a list of speakers here. So far, I have Algeria, Australia, Chile, Colombia, Austria, Tajikistan, Mexico, Brazil. May I remind you once again, please make sure that you're concise, 2 minutes max. Also, if you could send your statements to the ISU for the interpreters to make it easier for them to carry out the interpretation. So I will now call on Algeria as the first speaker for the afternoon, followed by Australia. No. Oh, okay, so Australia is not ready. Okay, so Algeria followed by Chile. Algeria, you have the floor, please.
السيدة الرئيسة، شكرا السيدة الرئيسة على منح الكلمة. بداية يود وفد بلادي أن يتوجه بخالص عبارات الشكر إلى الرئاسة الزامبية على تنظيم اللجنة الموضوعية حول الدفاع عن القانون الإنساني الدولي، الأطر العالمية ومكانة اتفاقية حظر الألغام المضادة للأفراد. كما نتوجه بالشكر إلى كافة المتحدثين المشاركين في الجلسة على مساهمتهم القيمة. السيدة الرئيسة، قبل ما يقارب 10 سنوات وخلال الإعلان الرسمي عن استكمال الجزائر لتنفيذ التزاماتها بموجب المادة الخامسة من الاتفاقية، أعربت الجزائر عن أملها في تحقيق عالمية الاتفاقية وبناء عالم خالي من الألغام المضادة للأفراد بحلول عام 2025. والحقيقة أن عام 2025 قد جاء بالفعل بتحولات مهمة بالنسبة للاتفاقية، إلا أنه وللأسف الشديد لم يأتي في الاتجاه الذي كنا نأمله. فقد شهدت الاتفاقية خلال العام الماضي انسحاب 5 دول، فضلا عن تعليق دولة أخرى لالتزاماتها بموجب الاتفاقية. وقد أسهم هذا التطور في وضع الاتفاقية أمام تحديات غير مسبوقة، وأثار تساؤلات حول جدوى المبادئ الأساسية التي قامت عليها هذه الأداة القانونية ذات الطابع الإنساني في المقام الأول. إن هذه الوضعية تستدعي تضافر أكبر للجهود من أجل احتواء هذا المنحى المقلق وإعادة الاتفاقية إلى مسارها الصحيح، بما يسمح بالمضي قدما نحو تحقيق عالميتها ويحول دون تزايد عدد الدول المنسحبة منها أو المعلقة لالتزاماتها. وعليه فإنه من الضروري التذكير بأهمية تعزيز الجهود الرامية إلى توعية الدول الأطراف بمسؤولياتها والتزاماتها تجاه هذه الاتفاقية. كما تجدر الإشارة إلى أن العمل الجماعي والتنسيق المشترك اللذين أسهما سابقا في إقناع إحدى الدول بالعدول عن قرار الانسحاب يظلان السبيل الأمثل والأكثر فعالية لبلوغ أهداف الاتفاقية وتحقيق عالميتها. السيدة الرئيسة، بصفتها عضوا في مجموعة التنسيق المعنية بتحقيق عالمية الاتفاقية وفي ظل ظرف دولي بالغ التعقيد والتوتر، تؤكد الجزائر التزامها الكامل بمواصلة العمل مع جميع الشركاء للحفاظ على استمرارية الاتفاقية واستدامتها، بما يسهم في وضع حد للمعاناة الإنسانية الجسيمة والأضرار البالغة التي ما تزال تتسبب بها الألغام المضادة للأفراد للمدنيين ولا سيما النساء والأطفال. ويستند هذا الالتزام الأخلاقي والسياسي إلى التجربة المريرة التي عاشتها الجزائر والتي عانت لعقود من الآثار المدمرة لهذه الأسلحة التي زرعت بكثافة خلال الحقبة الاستعمارية. السيدة الرئيسة، يرحب وفد بلادي بالجمهورية اللبنانية الشقيقة كعضو جديد في الاتفاقية، وإن اتخاذ هذه الخطوة في هذا الظرف الإقليمي بالغ التعقيد إنما يعكس التزام الدولة اللبنانية بحماية المدنيين من التداعيات الخطيرة والممتدة لهذه الأسلحة التي لا تميز بين ضحاياها ولا سيما من الفئات الأكثر هشاشة. كما يشكل انضمام لبنان دليلا إضافيا على استمرار جاذبية الاتفاقية ومتانة مبادئها الإنسانية، ويؤكد أن التحديات الراهنة مهما بلغت جسامتها لا يمكن أن تحجب الحاجة الملحة إلى تعزيز الجهود الدولية الرامية إلى تحقيق عالميتها وصون مكتسباتها. وعلى هذا الأساس تجدد الجزائر استعدادها الكامل للانخراط البناء في كافة الجهود والمساعي الرامية إلى تنفيذ الكامل للاتفاقية وتعزيز عالميتها، كما تعرب عن دعمها لجهودكم المخلصة من أجل ضمان نجاح أعمال اجتماعنا هذا وتحقيق النتائج المرجوة منه. شكرا لكم السيدة الرئيسة.
Thank you, Algeria. I'll now call on Chile, followed by Colombia. Chile.
Gracias, Presidenta. Solo un segundo que tengo un problema técnico con mi computador. Muchas gracias, señora Presidenta. Chile agradece la oportunidad de intervenir sobre la universalización de la Convención y desea destacar la pertinencia de este debate en el actual contexto internacional. En un escenario marcado por una creciente polarización y múltiples tensiones geopolíticas, observamos con preocupación una tendencia a relativizar el cumplimiento de las normas del derecho internacional humanitario. En este contexto, la decisión de algunos estados de retirarse de la Convención de Ottawa, así como las propuestas orientadas a reincorporar las minas antipersonal en doctrinas nacionales de defensa, constituyen un preocupante retroceso para la protección de la población civil y para los avances alcanzados por la comunidad internacional durante más de 2 décadas. La Convención de Ottawa representa uno de los mayores logros del desarme humanitario. Su importancia trasciende el número de estados parte y se refleja en la consolidación de una norma internacional que ha contribuido significativamente a reducir el empleo, la producción y la transferencia de minas antipersonal. Chile considera que la seguridad nacional y el legítimo ejercicio de la defensa por parte de los estados deben desarrollarse siempre en plena conformidad con el derecho internacional, incluido el derecho internacional humanitario. La experiencia histórica demuestra que los costos humanitarios, sociales y económicos de las minas antipersonal perduran mucho más allá de cualquier ventaja militar temporal. Asimismo, nos preocupa la creciente difusión de narrativas que promueven el uso de minas antipersonal para el control de fronteras o la gestión de movimientos migratorios. Tales planteamientos son incompatibles con el espíritu humanitario de esta convención y desconocen los efectos indiscriminados que estas armas tienen sobre la población civil, incluidos niños, mujeres y otras personas en situación de vulnerabilidad. Chile recuerda que la universalización de los convenios de Ginebra ha constituido durante décadas uno de los pilares fundamentales para la consolidación de las normas humanitarias internacionales. Ese mismo espíritu debe seguir guiando nuestros esfuerzos para fortalecer la universalización de la Convención de Ottawa. Por ello, hacemos un llamado a todos los estados que aún no son parte a considerar su adhesión a la Convención y exhortamos a aquellos que han anunciado su retiro a reconsiderar dichas decisiones en beneficio de la protección de la población civil y del fortalecimiento del sistema internacional basado en normas. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. I now call upon Colombia, followed by Austria.
Muchas gracias, señora Presidente. Y la felicitamos por el ejercicio de la presidencia en esta reunión. Damos la bienvenida también a Islas Marshall, el Reino de Tonga, así como el Líbano, como los países más recientes en unirse a la Convención. Particularmente resaltamos el caso del Líbano, que va en contra de preocupantes tendencias de retirarse de la Convención, arguyendo argumentos de seguridad militar. También nos congratulamos con Croacia por haber adquirido un estatus de libre de minas en su territorio. Colombia, como uno de los países más afectados por el impacto de estos artefactos, reconoce que esta reunión intersessional es una oportunidad para reflexionar sobre los desafíos que enfrenta la comunidad internacional en la mitigación de esta amenaza. El terrible sufrimiento que estas deplorables armas han causado a miles de nuestros ciudadanos lleva a Colombia a rechazar de manera categórica la transferencia, almacenamiento y el uso de minas antipersonales. Estamos aquí porque sabemos que las minas antipersonal no solo limitan el desarrollo y perpetúan ciclos de pobreza y violencia en nuestros estados, sino que también mutilan cuerpos. Frente a estos desafíos, la universalización de la Convención constituye una responsabilidad global que exige esfuerzos conjuntos, sostenidos y una acción decidida, ya que no se trata únicamente de una meta formal, sino de una necesidad imperiosa ante el uso continuo y creciente de minas antipersonal. Colombia reitera su firme respaldo a las acciones 11 y 12 del Plan de Acción de Siem Reap, las cuales orientan los esfuerzos colectivos hacia la plena adhesión de la Convención y el cumplimiento efectivo de sus disposiciones. En este sentido, expresamos nuestra profunda preocupación frente a la decisión de algunos estados de denunciar este instrumento, invocando argumentos de seguridad o utilidad militar. Tales justificaciones resultan contrarias tanto al espíritu como a la finalidad de la Convención y se apartan de los principios esenciales del derecho internacional humanitario. En coherencia con nuestra postura histórica, Colombia rechaza categóricamente el uso, la transferencia, la producción y el almacenamiento de minas antipersonal por parte de cualquier actor y bajo cualquier circunstancia. Las minas antipersonal violan los principios fundamentales del DIH y obstaculizan los esfuerzos globales por la paz y la seguridad humana. Su producción, almacenamiento y utilización es en todo momento y circunstancia incompatible con el DIH. Su carácter indiscriminado compromete la protección de la vida humana y distorsiona el equilibrio entre la acción militar legítima y la obligación de preservar la dignidad humana. Su uso continuo socava los esfuerzos globales por alcanzar una paz duradera, fortalecer la estabilidad regional y garantizar la seguridad humana. Por ello, Colombia lamenta cualquier decisión que atente contra la universalidad de la Convención. Por último, señora Presidenta, hacemos un llamado a los Estados donantes y organizaciones internacionales a renovar su compromiso con la universalización de la Convención de Ottawa y a garantizar el apoyo técnico y financiero necesario para enfrentar este desafío global. Y asimismo extendemos la invitación respetuosa a los estados que aún no forman parte de la Convención para que se unan a este esfuerzo común. Gracias.
Thank you. Please, delegates, can we ensure that our statements are short? We still have 12 speakers on the list, and we have other agenda items after this one. So please, if you can stick to 2 minutes, that will help. I now call on Austria, followed by Mexico. You have the floor, Austria.
Thank you, Madam President. Austria aligns with the EU statement. The Anti-Personal Mine Ban Convention is one of the most universal disarmament treaties, and its norms against anti-personal mines have demonstrated strong effect far beyond the states parties. It is a testament that the rule of law can better protect civilians and ensure development than the use of force. We commend you, Madam President, the coordinators, other states parties, the ICRC, ICBL, and others for their unwavering efforts with regard to universalization. The recent accession by Lebanon sends a strong signal to end suffering and protect civilians by relying on norms and aspirations. Our convention establishes minimum rules for the darkest days of war in order to protect civilians from unacceptable harm and long-term suffering. Humanitarian disarmament instruments should not be abandoned or suspended, but acceded to during times of conflict. We therefore commend Lebanon for having taken this step. We further welcome the Marshall Islands and Tonga to the Convention. They lead by example and give a strong voice of small island states in our Convention and beyond. We further acknowledge that several states outside the Convention have put moratoria on the production, use, and transfer of anti-personal mines, and welcome all intermediary steps that can be taken towards full accession. Madam President, anti-personal mines are prohibited by our Convention because of their indiscriminate nature and their unacceptable humanitarian and socioeconomic consequences. Their alleged military utility stands in no relation to the immediate and long-term humanitarian harm. By the time the treaty was adopted, it was clear that a comprehensive ban of these inhumane weapons was the only acceptable outcome with no exceptions. At the same time, anti-personal mines continue to kill and maim civilians. Austria condemns in the strongest terms any use by any actor under any circumstances. We deplore the recent increase in use and are alarmed by the resulting number of casualties. Europe is confronted with a brutal and illegal war of aggression by Russia against Ukraine, and we condemn Russia's widespread and continuous use of anti-personal mines against Ukraine. Austria fully stands with Ukraine and has continuously been supporting Ukraine, including through mine action. It is crucial for our collective security to uphold international law, in particular international humanitarian law and human rights law, and to reinforce the stigma against anti-personal mines. While fully acknowledging their particular security situation, Austria regrets that for the first time states have left this convention. We express our strong hope that these states will recommit to never produce, use, stockpile, or transfer anti-personal mines. Madam President, we call on states not party to the Convention to respect the strong norms established by the Convention in line with their international legal obligations, if not as states parties, but as a member of the international community and for the sake of their own citizens. By the time the treaty was negotiated and adopted, it was clear that a comprehensive prohibition was the only acceptable outcome with no exceptions. It is for this reason that the 22nd MSP decided that the Convention does not authorize suspension. The Convention is as a whole, and its legal provisions apply at all times and under any circumstances. We need to safeguard this Convention and other humanitarian treaties by remembering what is at stake. It is the life of civilians. I thank you.
Thank you, Austria. Now I give the floor to Mexico, followed by Brazil.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Al ser esta la primera intervención de mi delegación, quisiera reiterarle las felicitaciones de México por su elección como presidenta y agradecemos la diligencia y dedicación con la que usted, su equipo y la dependencia de apoyo han guiado nuestros trabajos hacia un diálogo sustantivo. Señora presidenta, México da la más cordial bienvenida a la República Libanesa a nuestra comunidad. Su adhesión constituye un testimonio de la vigencia y relevancia de la prohibición de estas armas indiscriminadas, demostrando que su valor humanitario trasciende los contextos de paz y estabilidad. Asimismo, su adhesión fortalece el fundamento humanitario de la Convención y nos acerca al objetivo compartido de alcanzar un mundo libre de estas armas, un Estado a la vez. En ese sentido, hacemos un llamado a los Estados que aún no lo han hecho a adherirse a la Convención. De igual forma, felicitamos a la República de Croacia por haber cumplido sus obligaciones en virtud del artículo 5. Este logro refleja los avances colectivos alcanzados a lo largo de décadas y reafirma la eficacia de la cooperación internacional. Recordamos que la decisión de prohibir estas armas nació del reconocimiento de sus efectos humanitarios indiscriminados, los cuales son incompatibles con el derecho internacional humanitario. Reiteramos que la supuesta utilidad militar de estas armas se ve ampliamente superada por el daño desproporcionado que infligen a la población civil. Ello se convalida año tras año con datos sobre la afectación desproporcionada de víctimas civiles. Por ejemplo, en su más reciente reporte, Landmine Monitor indica que el 90% de todas las víctimas registradas fueron civiles, de las cuales 46% fueron menores de edad. Señora Presidenta, lamentamos profundamente la entrada en vigor de las denuncias presentadas el año pasado por 5 estados parte. Su retirada representa un retroceso significativo para el régimen internacional de desarme en un momento en el que resulta más necesario que nunca reafirmar la vigencia de las normas que protegen a los civiles. Bajo el espíritu de cooperación que siempre ha orientado este instrumento, instamos a dichos estados a reconsiderar su decisión. Por otra parte, reiteramos que, para México, es evidente que la Convención no contempla la suspensión de las obligaciones de un Estado parte, y reiteramos que las obligaciones de la Convención están previstas para aplicarse tanto en tiempos de paz como en tiempos de conflictos armados. En estos tiempos de retos significativos para el instrumento, exacerbados por el surgimiento de narrativas que buscan legitimar la supuesta utilidad militar de estas armas indiscriminadas, consideramos fundamental reforzar la universalidad de la norma general de la prohibición de estas armas. Por ello, se deben reforzar la deslegitimización de estas armas, incluso entre estados no parte, así como destacar los considerables beneficios sociales, económicos y humanitarios derivados por la acción de minas y actividades de prevención. Del mismo modo, resulta esencial preservar la centralidad de las víctimas, cuya experiencia y participación han sido pilares fundamentales en la implementación de la Convención. Finalmente, México reitera su inquebrantable compromiso con el desarme humanitario y firme determinación para lograr un mundo completamente libre de estas armas. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Mexico. I now have Brazil, followed by Bangladesh. Please keep to 2 minutes if you can.
Madam President, allow me to begin by congratulating you for assuming the role of President of the 23rd Meeting of States Parties of the PMBC and for your efforts and those of the ISU towards expanding the membership of the Convention. Our joint efforts on universalization reflect the shared conviction that the prohibition of anti-personnel mines should extend to all members of the international community. That conviction has not diminished, even as the political environment has grown more challenging. That premise deserves reaffirmation, particularly at the moment when the treaty's membership has contracted for the first time in its history due to the regrettable decision by 5 states parties to withdraw from the convention last year. Such moves represent a serious challenge to the universalization objective and to the standing of the global norm against landmines. In this context, the recent decision by Lebanon to accede to the convention, which my delegation heartily applauds, provides a beacon of hope and a potent demonstration that the prohibition of landmines must be upheld even in times of war. We also seize this opportunity to congratulate Croatia for achieving mine-free status after decades of stringent clearance efforts. In this connection, it bears recalling that anti-personnel mines are fundamentally abhorrent weapons. They are indiscriminate by nature and have a lasting impact that persists decades after the end of the conflicts during which they were deployed. Their use is therefore incompatible with the fundamental principles of international humanitarian law. Brazil therefore condemns any use of anti-personnel landmines anywhere, by anyone, and under any circumstances. As one of the founding states of the global initiative to galvanize political commitment to international humanitarian law, launched in September 2024 together with China, France, Jordan, Kazakhstan, South Africa, and the ICRC, Brazil is committed to contributing to reverse the erosion of respect for IHL across all dimensions. In this regard, Brazil believes that the universalization of the APMBC and the preservation of its normative coherence are inseparable from the wider effort to ensure that IHL remains capable of protecting civilians worldwide. In conclusion, Brazil reiterates its call on all states not party to adhere to the convention at the earliest opportunity and pending accession to refrain from any conduct inconsistent with its object and purpose. We also call on all states parties to abide fully by their obligations under it. I thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Brazil. I now call on Bangladesh, followed by Palau.
Madam President, thank you for giving me the floor. We congratulate Lebanon on its accession to this convention and Croatia on its accomplishment. While going through the guiding questions, we are faced with a more fundamental question. What are the conditions that make states willing to embrace and sustain the norm of this convention in the very first place? Universalization ultimately rests on a simple assumption. It assumes that states believe adherence to the convention enhances their security more than the deterrent value of retaining anti-personnel mines does. For decades, this assumption appeared reasonable. Arms control, non-proliferation, and disarmament rested on a broader bargain. States accepted restraint because they believed that security could be achieved not only through deterrence, but also through rules, institutions, and collective guarantees. That belief was not irrational. It was built on confidence in a wider international order, including the collective security mechanisms established under the United Nations. Today, however, that calculation is being tested. As collective security mechanisms struggle to function effectively, states are being exposed to security vulnerabilities and asymmetries that they believe had been mitigated. As a result, they are asking difficult questions. Can they continue to accept restrictions that others do not share? Can they rely on collective security arrangements when those arrangements appear increasingly uncertain? And perhaps most fundamentally, if collective security guarantees fail to materialize, are states still willing to live with the deterrence and security asymmetries that treaty-based restraint may create? These are not theoretical questions. They are the questions many governments are confronting today. This is why the challenge facing universalization cannot be understood in isolation from the wider security environment. Universalization is therefore entering a critical test. States are being forced to make a realist choice. They will support arms control when they believe it strengthens their security. They will hesitate when they believe it creates new asymmetries or leaves them more vulnerable than others. We may not like this reality, but we should not ignore it. Madam President, my delegation therefore wishes to sound a note of caution. If the foundations of collective security continue to erode, the consequences will not stop at one treaty. They will be felt across the entire multilateral arms control architecture. The future of universalization is therefore linked not only to the strength of this convention, but also to the strength of the wider international security order that underpins it. This is a reality that we must confront honestly if we are serious about preserving and advancing the goals of humanitarian disarmament. Humanity cannot afford to see the hard-won gains of humanitarian disarmament gradually unravel, nor can it afford the continued erosion of collective security that has made those gains possible. I thank you.
Thank you, Bangladesh. I give the floor to Palau, followed by Mali.
Palau wishes to congratulate the presidency for our convening and for leading us throughout the year. Palau welcomed Lebanon as the newest state party and note that other recent accession to the convention, including 2 states from the Blue Pacific region, highlighting momentum in universalization and to continued engagement, is essential to sustaining and building on these positive developments. Palau is pleased to inform that it is preparing to take forward a number of initiatives in the Pacific region in the context of our forthcoming presidency of the Pacific Island Forum, which be held in Palau. In this regard, Palau intends to leverage its presidency to advance 2 mutual reinforcing priorities under the convention. For this purpose, Palau would like to express our appreciation to the European Union for supporting this important exchange and for promoting regional stakeholder dialogue-based approach under the convention. The dialogue will have 2 main aims. First, Palau aims to support continued efforts toward universalization in the Pacific, including engagement with the remaining state in the region that has not yet joined the convention. We believe the sustained practical dialogue remains one of the most effective ways to encourage broader adherence and to reinforce humanitarian objective of the convention. In this context, we are planning to use the period of the Pacific Island Forum for high-level engagement with Pacific leaders to further promote the convention's objective and reinforce political attention and will to universalization and implementation of the convention. Second, we seek to strengthen the implementation of key obligations under the convention among state parties in the region, in particular those related to Article 7 reporting and Article 9 national implementation measures. For many Pacific states, the challenge is the need to maintain awareness of the treaty obligation, ensuring continuity of institutional knowledge, and support regular and meaningful reporting. In this context, we see particular value in structured dialogue processes, such as those presented today, which will help national focal points and relevant institutions remain engaged, exchange experience, and identify practical ways to implement obligations effectively, even in contexts where capacities are limited and responsibility are often shared across multiple international instruments. Palau also see important opportunities to enhance synergies with other humanitarian disarmament and international instruments, ensuring that limited national resources can be used in a more coordinated and efficient manner. In small administrations, such as those in the Pacific, this kind of practical cooperation is essential to sustaining long-term engagement. Palau therefore views this initiative not only as relevant to states affected by mines, but as a broader platform for all state parties to strengthen implementation, reporting, and awareness of the convention. In this sense, dialogue becomes an instrument not only for addressing contamination, but also for reinforcing the continued relevance and visibility of the convention across all regions. Palau looks forward to working with partners in the region and with the wider convention community to advance these objectives and to ensure that the collective Pacific voices continues to contribute to the implementation and universalization of this important instrument. I thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Palau. I now give the floor to Mali, followed by Cameroon. 2 minutes, please.
Madame la Présidente, je voudrais tout d'abord vous adresser les chaleureuses félicitations de la délégation malienne pour votre élection et vous assurer de la pleine coopération de notre délégation. La délégation malienne souscrit à la déclaration faite par la Sierra Leone au nom du groupe africain, cependant a quelques observations au plan national. Madame la Présidente, le Mali réaffirme son attachement indéfectible aux principes et aux normes du droit international humanitaire qui vise à protéger les populations civiles contre les effets des conflits armés et à préserver la dignité humaine en toutes circonstances. Depuis son adoption en 1997, la Convention d'Ottawa constitue l'un des instruments les plus importants du désarmement humanitaire. Elle traduit la volonté de la communauté internationale de mettre fin aux souffrances causées par les mines antipersonnelles, armes qui continuent de tuer et de mutiler longtemps après les conflits. Le Mali considère que l'universalisation de cette convention demeure une priorité. Plus le nombre d'États parties augmente, plus les normes humanitaires qu'elle consacre deviennent universelles et renforcent la protection des populations civiles. À cet égard, le Mali encourage les États qui ne l'ont pas encore fait à adhérer à la Convention et à mettre en œuvre pleinement ses dispositions. L'adhésion universelle constitue la meilleure garantie contre l'utilisation future de ces armes indiscriminées. Madame la Présidente, les mines antipersonnelles frappent sans distinction les combattants ainsi que les civils. Elles compromettent l'accès aux terres agricoles, aux écoles, aux centres de santé et aux infrastructures essentielles. Elles freinent le retour des personnes déplacées et entravent les efforts de développement durable. Dans le contexte des conflits et d'insécurité, les populations les plus vulnérables, notamment les femmes, les enfants et les personnes vivant dans les zones rurales, sont souvent les premières victimes de ces engins explosifs. Le Mali demeure particulièrement sensible à cette réalité, compte tenu des défis sécuritaires auxquels il est confronté. La protection des civils et la réduction des risques liés aux engins explosifs constituent des priorités constantes de l'action publique. Madame la Présidente, pour le Mali, la lutte contre les mines antipersonnelles s'inscrit avant tout dans la défense du droit international humanitaire. Ces droits reposent sur des principes fondamentaux, notamment le principe de distinction entre civils et combattants, le principe de proportionnalité, le principe de précaution dans la conduite des hostilités, l'interdiction des moyens et méthodes de guerre causant des souffrances inutiles. Les mines antipersonnelles sont incompatibles avec ces principes dans la mesure où elles ne distinguent pas les victimes et continuent de produire les effets longtemps après les conflits. Le Mali considère que la promotion de la Convention d'Ottawa contribue directement au renforcement du respect du droit international humanitaire et à la consolidation d'un ordre international fondé sur la protection de la personne humaine. L'universalisation de la Convention doit s'accompagner d'une coopération internationale renforcée en matière d'assistance aux victimes, de déminage humanitaire, d'éducation aux risques liés aux mines, de renforcement des capacités nationales, de partage des bonnes pratiques et des technologies de détection et de destruction. Le Mali salue les efforts des États parties, des organisations internationales et des acteurs humanitaires engagés dans ce domaine et réaffirme son soutien aux initiatives visant à réduire l'impact humanitaire des mines et autres restes d'explosifs de guerre. Madame la Présidente, le Mali demeure convaincu que l'universalisation de la Convention sur l'interdiction des mines antipersonnelles représente non seulement un objectif de désarmement, mais également une exigence morale et humanitaire. En défendant cette Convention, nous défendons avant tout les principes fondamentaux du droit international humanitaire, la protection des populations civiles et le respect de la dignité humaine. La République du Mali renouvelle son appel à tous les États qui ne sont pas encore partis à la Convention à y adhérer sans délai et à contribuer ainsi à l'édification d'un monde exempt de mines antipersonnelles. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Mali. I now give the floor to Cameroon, followed by Tajikistan.
Madame la Présidente, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, le Cameroun tient d'emblée à réaffirmer son attachement au multilatéralisme à travers son adhésion à la Convention et à son alignement dans les faits et en pratique, aussi bien à la déclaration de CRM encore qu'à son plan d'action. Fidèle à la logique inclusive des solutions à apporter aux problèmes qui adressent la société internationale, notre pays continue d'œuvrer en faveur de l'universalisation de la Convention d'Ottawa. Dans cette dynamique, mon pays a adhéré et participe activement à l'initiative mondiale visant à revitaliser l'engagement politique en faveur du droit international humanitaire, lancé par le Comité international de la Croix-Rouge et soutenu par près de 90 pays. Aussi, dans les cadres régionaux et sous-régionaux africains, la diplomatie camerounaise ne cesse de plaider en faveur de la lutte anti-mine. Madame la Présidente, tout en reconnaissant les défis persistants liés à l'accessibilité dans certaines zones reculées ou en crise, le Cameroun reste pleinement mobilisé pour consolider les progrès réalisés en matière de respect des engagements conventionnels, à travers notamment le renforcement des programmes de désarmement, démobilisation et réinsertion, l'adoption et la mise en œuvre des plans d'action de reconstruction et de réhabilitation des régions en proie aux crises, ainsi qu'à la création des centres hospitaliers régionaux en vue de la prise en charge des victimes. Nous réaffirmons notre attachement aux principes humanitaires de la Convention et notre détermination à œuvrer que nul ne soit laissé pour compte. Suivant cette approche, le Cameroun, dans sa diplomatie constante, félicite les États pour leurs adhésions à la Convention, encourage ceux qui envisagent de s'y retirer à s'y maintenir, et pour ceux qui ne l'ont pas encore fait, à y adhérer. C'est l'occasion ici pour mon pays de saluer solennellement le Liban pour sa récente adhésion à la Convention et lui souhaiter une chaleureuse bienvenue dans cette famille. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Cameroon. I now give the floor to Tajikistan, followed by Panama.
Dear Mr. President, Excellency, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to welcome Lebanon to join the convention. My congratulations. I stand before you today to represent the Republic of Tajikistan, a nation that understands the profound humanitarian cost of landmines and explosive remnants of war. For over two decades, Tajikistan has walked a rigorous path toward fulfilling its obligations under the Ottawa Convention, clearing millions of square meters of land and returning it safely to our rural communities. However, our national progress remains vulnerable if our borders are not met with the same legal and humanitarian commitments. This brings us to the core objective of today's dialogue, universalization. Mine action cannot truly succeed in isolation. In Tajikistan, our primary contamination challenges lie along rugged, mountainous border regions. While we celebrate historic trilateral border demarcation milestones, such as the recent Hujan Declaration between Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan, true regional safety demands a unified legal framework. Universalization is not just a diplomatic formality. It is an urgent humanitarian imperative. When every nation in Central Asia and across the globe formally accedes to the Mine Ban Convention, we unlock three critical pillars of progress. First, enhanced border collaboration. Shared legal obligations dismantle political sensitivities, enabling joint cross-border technical surveys and shared minefield data. Second, research and technical mobilization. Global compliance drives international funding, modern mechanical demining tools, and specialized equipment to remote mountainous terrains. Third, standardized victim support. Universal adherence ensures that survivors, particularly women and children, receive consistent, long-term health care, prosthetics, and social reintegration. Tajikistan has proved its commitment by nationalizing its mine action sector through the Tajikistan National Mine Action Center, and integrative, inclusive, gender-balanced demining teams. But a mine-free world requires all nations to speak the same language of disarmament. We highly applaud the recent accessions of our global peers and explicitly call upon all remaining states outside the treaty to join the Ottawa Convention without any delay. Let us strip these silent killers of their legitimacy. Let us turn hazardous borders into pathways of shared prosperity. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. I now call upon the UK, followed by Canada. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Madam President.
Okay.
Thank you for your leadership so far in growing and implementing the Convention. Progress is being made, and we are delighted to welcome the Republic of Lebanon to the Convention. The UK's commitment to this Convention is unwavering. We stand ready to engage with any state not party, to support their accession, and continue to actively work towards the goal of universalisation. Madam President, in our deliberations on this agenda item, we must recognise the wider context in which we meet. Russia's brutal and illegal invasion of Ukraine continues to drive regional and global instability. Its effects are being felt by many states parties gathered here today. This is the context in which some states decided to withdraw as provided for under Article 20 of the Convention. We regret this decision, but we also regret that many states parties continue to refuse to recognise the context in which this decision was taken. We continue to encourage close adherence to the key provisions of the treaty and its norms. We hope these decisions will prove temporary and that the door will remain firmly open to their return. Madam President, despite the difficult geopolitical environment, the UK remains confident that this convention will continue to move forward. The Siem Reap Anchor Action Plan provides a clear roadmap. The UK remains unwaveringly committed to our convention. Our support, its humanitarian purpose, and its norms remain firm. Thank you.
Thank you, the UK. I now call on Panama, followed by Canada.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Damos una cálida bienvenida al Líbano como nuevo Estado parte en la Convención. Este paso decisivo se produce en una coyuntura de constante inseguridad internacional, lo que demuestra que incluso en tiempos excepcionales los Estados optamos por defender las normas que protegen a la humanidad en lugar de abandonarlas. Asimismo, acogemos con beneplácito la declaración de Croacia como país libre de minas tras 3 décadas de contaminación. El estigma global contra las minas antipersonal continúa creciendo como señal clara y contundente de que estas armas son incompatibles con la protección de la población civil y el medio ambiente. Instamos a los estados que aún no lo hayan hecho a que ratifiquen la Convención sin dilación. La universalización y la observancia universal de la Convención es una tarea prioritaria de todos. Destacamos el rol crucial de las Naciones Unidas, el CICR, los organismos regionales, la sociedad civil, las mujeres, los jóvenes, las víctimas y sobrevivientes y las comunidades afectadas en este ámbito. Valoramos positivamente la colaboración con la UIP, ya que los parlamentarios son actores claves para la adhesión o ratificación de la Convención, así como para garantizar su plena incorporación en la legislación nacional y ejercer la función de control parlamentario sobre las decisiones relacionadas con estas armas. Por otra parte, lamentamos profundamente que se haya oficializado la denuncia de 5 países a la Convención. Los Estados partes y otros interlocutores no debemos escatimar esfuerzos para evitar estas medidas. Hacemos un llamado para que dichos países se abstengan de cometer actos que estén prohibidos por la Convención. Deseamos enfatizar que este instrumento no permite la suspensión de las obligaciones de sus Estados partes, por lo que sus disposiciones siguen siendo vinculantes en todo momento y en todas las circunstancias. Invitamos al Estado parte concernido en el espíritu de cumplimiento cooperativo a discutir cualesquiera cuestiones pendientes en el marco de la Convención. Por último, condenamos el empleo, la producción y la transferencia de minas antipersonal por cualquier actor y en cualquier circunstancia, y rechazamos cualquier noción de que condenar estos actos constituye un impedimento para la universalización de la Convención. Muchas gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you. I now give the floor to Canada.
Thank you, Madam President. I join others in congratulating Zambia on acceding to the presidency of the Ottawa Convention, and we thank you and your team for all the hard work. We wish to again welcome the Republic of the Marshall Islands and the Kingdom of Tonga to our convention. Additionally, we also want to take the opportunity to welcome Lebanon, who has made the important step to joining the convention. Their decision to join the convention reinforces the enduring strength and relevance of our shared humanitarian objectives. We also wish to congratulate Croatia for achieving its important milestone in completing its clearance obligation, and we continue to encourage all states not yet party to the convention to consider joining us without delay. For Canada, the Ottawa Convention remains a cornerstone of our humanitarian disarmament policy. Our support for the convention, its objectives, and the principles remain steadfast. We continue to believe that the Ottawa Convention stands among the most successful humanitarian disarmament treaty in history. Madam President, this is our first meeting since the departure of 5 states parties has come into effect. While we expressed concern regarding these departures in our interventions last year, we continue to thank those states for continuing a dialogue with us and encourage them to continue to engage and participate in our meetings under an observer status. Anti-personnel mines and unexploded ordnance can cause long-term human suffering and pose a grave threat to countries during and after conflict. Unexploded ordnances continue to endanger civilians, obstruct humanitarian access, and undermine development. At a time when armed conflicts continue to affect civilians around the world, we must underscore the importance of defending and strengthening international humanitarian law. Respect for IHL is essential to limiting the human cost of conflict and preventing a minimum standard of humanity in times of war. Its principles remain as relevant today as ever and provide an indispensable framework for the protection of civilians and civilian infrastructure. The humanitarian consequences of anti-personnel mines and explosive remnants of war demonstrate why adherence to IHL matters. These weapons can continue to kill and injure long after hostilities have ceased, affecting communities for generations. Efforts to clear contaminated lands, assist victims, and prevent future harm and practical expressions of our collective commitment to the protection of civilians and the reduction of suffering. My delegation would like to emphasize the importance of preserving and advancing the international humanitarian disarmament architecture. Instruments such as the Ottawa Convention and the Convention on Cluster Munitions reflect the international community's determination to place humanitarian considerations at the center of security policy. Their universalization and implementation remain critically important to protecting the vulnerable populations and promoting lasting peace and security. Finally, my delegation remains committed to working with partners to secure a future free from the threats of mines and unexploded ordnance while continuing to uphold and defend the principles of IHL that underpin these efforts. I thank you.
Thank you, Canada. Excellencies, dear delegates, while this is an informal forum and while we operate without any agreed rules of procedure, our practice has been that when a state party wishes to exercise a right of reply, we use the practices normally used during the meeting of states parties. With that said, I understand that Armenia wishes to take the floor to exercise its right to reply. You will recall that it is our practice that if a delegation wishes to exercise its right to reply, we intend to grant that delegation no more than 2 rights of reply on a particular matter. With that said, I recognize Armenia. Armenia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President, and I will be very brief. While Armenia is not a state party to the Ottawa Convention, we support and align with its overarching objective of addressing the humanitarian challenges posed by anti-personnel landmines and ensuring the protection of civilian populations. Armenia has consistently undertaken significant efforts in its own capacity to contribute to this goal. For the sake of clarity, I would like to underline that Armenia, as a gesture of goodwill, has unilaterally provided to Azerbaijan all minefield maps in its possession and has consistently expressed its readiness to cooperate on this issue. We believe that meaningful progress in addressing humanitarian issues is essential for building trust and fostering reconciliation between societies. I thank you.
Thank you, Armenia. Thank you. I think we'll proceed now with the interventions. I will now call upon the NPA to take the floor, please.
Thank you, Madam President. NPA warmly congratulates Lebanon for its accession to the Convention and for its courage amid ongoing conflict on its own territory to strengthen the global commitment to ban anti-personal mines. This sends a powerful message that no exceptional circumstances can ever justify the use of these indiscriminate weapons. We also wish to congratulate Croatia for the completion of their Article 5 obligations. The Convention remains one of the most universal humanitarian disarmament treaties that established a strong norm and stigma reaching far beyond states parties alone. The progress achieved since its adoption nearly 30 years ago is undeniable, but it did not happen by itself, and it cannot be taken for granted. It is the sustained will and commitment of states, international organizations, and civil society that made this progress possible, and that same collective determination is now urgently needed to safeguard what has been achieved and to ensure continued progress in fulfilling the Convention's humanitarian objective to end the suffering caused by anti-personal mines once and for all. We are living in a time of growing prevalence of armed conflicts in which the rules and limits of war are being seriously challenged and undermined. Certain European states have withdrawn from humanitarian disarmament treaties. One attempted to illegally suspend this convention, and these life-saving instruments continue to be under increasing strain. Now, more than ever, the imperative to protect civilians must be at the forefront of our collective agenda, because when humanitarian norms are abandoned, it is the civilians who bear the heaviest burden. NPA is deeply concerned by the continued use and presence of anti-personal mines and the increasing number of people killed and injured by these inhumane weapons. We strongly condemn the use of anti-personal mines by states not party, including the widespread use by Russia and Myanmar, and we urge all states that still remain outside the Convention to join without delay. Of equally grave concern are the reports of new planned production of anti-personal mines in Europe, the developments that threaten the very principles the Convention is built on. We therefore call on all states parties to speak out clearly against such steps and to reaffirm unequivocally their commitment to the ban. Madam President, in light of the current global challenges, there is a pressing need for more states to take a clear stand in support of a rules-based order, humanitarian principles, and international humanitarian law. Even in the face of serious security threats, states must prioritize upholding norms that protect civilians, and Lebanon's accession to this convention stands as a clear demonstration that this is indeed possible. As we just heard from Lebanon, its decision was not based on rhetoric, but lived experience of the terrible consequences these weapons have on the ground. This is a stark reminder that the adherence to the Convention is not contingent on favorable time or circumstances. It matters most precisely when the stakes are highest. As many delegations also stressed today, we all must strengthen our collective efforts to universalize the Convention, and it is essential that all states parties do their utmost to consistently protect and promote the norm against anti-personal mines in line with their obligations and the commitments they have undertaken. I thank you.
Thank you. I now give the floor to Spain.
Muchas gracias, señora presidenta. Al ser esta la primera vez que mi delegación toma la palabra, quiero empezar por agradecerle su trabajo en favor de esta convención, especialmente en momentos como los actuales, en los que tanto esta convención como otras se enfrentan a crecientes retos debido a los preocupantes cambios en la seguridad internacional. Permítame, por ello, empezar por reiterar el firme compromiso de mi país, España, con esta convención y unirme a todos aquellos que antes de mí han puesto en valor el importante papel de la unidad de implementación a la hora de promover los principios y valores de esta convención. Asimismo, quiero aprovechar esta oportunidad para dar una calurosa bienvenida al Líbano como nuevo Estado miembro a esta convención. Nos alegramos mucho de tenerles en esta familia. Señora presidenta, los graves efectos humanitarios y para el desarrollo económico y social causados en los países afectados por el uso de minas antipersonal y restos explosivos de guerra nos obligan ahora más que nunca, a redoblar nuestros esfuerzos en favor de la universalización. La universalización de esta Convención es, por tanto, esencial para expandir a los países que no son miembros el mismo compromiso que todos observamos con una normativa humanitaria que con gran esfuerzo logramos acordar hace muchos años. El preocupante deterioro del contexto de seguridad internacional, resultado directo de la guerra ilegal, injustificada y no provocada de Rusia contra Ucrania y sus efectos devastadores sobre otros Estados europeos, dieron lugar en 2025 al proceso de retirada de 5 países de la Convención. Estos hechos son precisamente los que deben impulsarnos a redoblar nuestros esfuerzos para apoyar y universalizar esta Convención, asegurando que sus normas se extienden a todos los países y a todas las regiones. Señora Presidenta, España, bilateralmente y a través de la Unión Europea, cuya intervención suscribimos, continuará apoyando a esta y a futuras presidencias de la Convención en su labor por atraer a la misma a países no miembros, tanto aquellos que podrían plantearse ahora su acceso a este tratado, como, y muy especialmente, aquellos que siguen apoyando la resolución de la Asamblea General sobre la implementación de esta Convención. Muchas gracias, señora Presidenta.
Thank you, Spain. Now I have the last speaker will be UNODA on behalf of the UN Interagency Coordination Group. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Excellencies, I have the honor to deliver this abridged statement on behalf of the UN Interagency Coordination Group on Mine Action. We welcome the renewed effort to stand up for international humanitarian law and for humanitarian disarmament conventions that prohibit the use of indiscriminate and inhumane weapons. These instruments are not only essential for the protection of civilians, they form the very foundations of humanitarian mine action. Excellencies, anti-personnel mines have no place in modern warfare. Advances in technologies have significantly reduced their military relevance, far outweighed by their long-term humanitarian costs, which continues for decades after conflicts end. We must counter assumptions about the continued utility of these weapons and highlight their use as ineffective, inhumane, indiscriminate, and incompatible with international humanitarian law. The humanitarian consequences of anti-personnel landmines are long-lasting and borne primarily by civilians. This trend strengthens the urgency of the prohibition and universalization of this convention. Universalization is fundamentally about people, mine-affected populations, survivors and their families, those displaced, and communities living in fear and hindered by their abilities to live safe and full lives. Excellencies, new accessions strengthen the convention, and we welcome the announcement by Lebanon of their accession. Their accession sends a powerful message that even under the most complex of circumstances, commitment to humanitarian norms must remain a priority. It also reminds us why we continue to strengthen the protection of civilians from these indiscriminate weapons. Our shared objective is to protect lives, an enduring and universal imperative that cannot be applied selectively depending on situations. The United Nations stands ready to support Lebanon in fulfilling its future obligations under this convention, including through clearance, risk education, and victim assistance. Excellencies, this convention is one of the most successful humanitarian achievements of our time and must be preserved and strengthened. We must reject any attempts to justify the reintroduction of these weapons and condemn their use or production by actors under any circumstances. The United Nations urges states to reverse any withdrawals and to recommit fully to the Convention's objectives. We call on states not yet party to join without delay, and on all states parties to fully and faithfully implement their obligations. We also encourage the full implementation of all related humanitarian disarmament instruments, may be the Convention on Cluster Munitions, the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons, and the Political Declaration on Explosive Weapons in Populated Areas. As we approach the 30th anniversary of the Convention next year, the United Nations will continue to build on the Secretary General's effort to promote IHL and to strengthen humanitarian disarmament norms. Let us use this milestone to reaffirm our commitment towards a mine-free world, not only in words, but through sustained political will and concrete actions. I thank you.
Thank you, UNODA. I now wish to close this agenda item, but if there's anyone, any delegation that wishes to take the floor before we do that, I see none. I want to thank you all for who have taken the floor. Your participation in our meetings and the information you provide is very important to us, and we encourage you to continue participating. Please know that the Presidency and the ISU are at your disposal to answer any questions you may have related to the Convention. I would recall that it is not only the mandate of the President to further universalization, but it is also a responsibility of all of us to ensure universalization of the Convention. Action 11 of the SIMRIP Action Plan commits states parties to use all available avenues at the global, regional, and sub-regional levels, including through high-level engagement and cooperation and assistance to promote ratification or accession to the Convention by states not party, including by encouraging their participation in the work of the Convention. I would now like to declare this agenda item closed and invite the next panel to the podium on cooperation and assistance, advancing our shared commitments through strengthened partnerships, national mine action platforms, and coordinated donor engagement. I thank you.
Careful, Ambassador, please.
Bonsoir à tous, Excellences, distingués collègues et amis et bienvenue à ce panel dédié à la coopération et l'assistance. Nous commençons avec 1 heure de retard environ que nous devons rattraper pour nous assurer que nous finirons cette session, ces réunions intersessionnelles selon le planning qui a été arrêté. Comme vous le savez, dans le cadre de la Convention sur l'interdiction des armes des mines antipersonnelles, la coopération et l'assistance ne sont pas facultatives. Elles en constituent même le cœur de la mise en œuvre de la Convention. Le plan d'action de SIMRIP encore 2025-2029 nous rappelle que l'appropriation nationale, la transparence, le soutien prévisible et le dialogue structuré sont indispensables si nous voulons honorer les engagements collectifs que nous avons pris. Le panel d'aujourd'hui porte sur la manière dont les plateformes nationales de lutte anti-mine ainsi que le renforcement des partenariats et d'un dialogue régulier entre les parties prenantes peuvent transformer la coopération en la faisant passer d'échanges ponctuels et ad hoc à une collaboration cohérente, responsable et fondée sur les besoins réels. Le Comité sur le renforcement de la coopération et de l'assistance est convaincu qu'un dialogue régulier et structuré entre les parties prenantes est un véritable game changer pour la mise en œuvre de notre convention. Et lorsque nous parlons de parties prenantes, nous entendons l'ensemble des acteurs concernés, y compris les États donateurs, les autorités gouvernementales, les organisations de mise en œuvre et les autres partenaires concernés. L'objectif de cette session est donc triple. Il s'agira d'examiner les expériences concrètes des États affectés, des États donateurs et des partenaires internationaux, de mieux comprendre ce qui permet aux mécanismes de coordination de fonctionner efficacement, ainsi que les obstacles qui peuvent limiter leur efficacité. D'identifier également des moyens concrets de renforcer un dialogue régulier entre toutes les parties prenantes au niveau national et international, entre autorités nationales, partenaires de mise en œuvre et bailleurs de fonds. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to support our discussions, it's a pleasure to introduce my speakers for this session. Her Excellency Tomiko Ishikawa, Ambassador, Permanent Representative of Japan to the Conference on Disarmament. Japan is a long-standing donor with a strong record of support. Thank you for joining us. Mr. Tariq Serak, Head of Mine Action Management Department, Bosnia and Herzegovina Mine Action Center. Bosnia and Herzegovina has extensive experience with national coordination mechanism and multi-stakeholder platform. We are looking forward to learning about Bosnia and Herzegovina's mechanism to facilitate dialogue. Colonel Chabel James, Operation Section Head, Lebanon Mine Action Center. Lebanon's national coordination model is often cited for its structured engagement with donors and operators, and we look forward to learning more. Steiner Essen, Global Mine Action Advisor. Crisis Bureau, UNGP. UNGP, as you know, supports national ownership, capacity development, and the establishment of national platforms in multiple contexts, and we look forward to learning how to strengthen this kind of support. His Excellency David Riley, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of the United Kingdom on the Conference of Disarmament. The UK is a major donor with a strong focus on evidence-based, needs-driven assistance. Thank you for joining us, Ambassador. So allow me to first turn to Ambassador Ishikawa to learn about Japan's view about strengthening of dialogue between stakeholders and Japan's support in this regard. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Yes. Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank the President of the 23rd MSP Zambia and the Committee Chair Cameroon for organizing this panel. I would also like to warmly welcome and praise Lebanon's decision to accede to the APMBC. And we all know that long before Lebanon's accession to the convention, Lebanon already had established the Lebanon Mine Action Authority and the Lebanon Mine Action Center, demonstrating its national ownership and strong capacity, as we also heard just before this session at the side event. So among the points mentioned in the Siem Reap Anchor Action Plan, I'd like to focus on 3 points and how Japan has been implementing them in our cooperation with affected states. These 3 points are strengthen national ownership. Second point is coordinating support for implementation. And the third point is sharing good practices and lessons learned to accelerate progress. So my first point is strengthening national ownership. Actually, during Japan's presidency, I also talked about this a lot. So some of you or many of you have already heard about it. But Japan's support to mine action has long recognized the importance of promoting national ownership and assisting capacity building of mine-affected countries. First, national ownership, which means coordination of mine action programs led by the affected countries themselves, contributes to ensuring that mine action programs are integrated into the country's national development strategy and other related policies. To this end, a whole-of-the-government approach supported by political leadership at the highest level is needed in the affected countries. National mine action platforms, a subject that will be discussed more extensively, I understand, from affected countries' panelists, can play an important role in this regard. Second, it is important that donor engagement supports strengthening national ownership of the affected countries through capacity building of their human resources. This will contribute to enhanced planning and implementation of mine action, and also its sustainability over a long period of time, a theme we will, I understand, discuss under agenda item 6. So the second point, my second point is coordinating support for implementation. So based on these 2 concepts, Japan has been promoting sustainable and efficient mine action with the goal of realizing human security through close collaboration with mine-affected countries, donors, international organizations, NGOs, and the private sector. One example of Japan's long-term support based on national ownership and capacity building is our support to Cambodia. Since the 1990s, Japan has been supporting capacity development of the Cambodia Mine Action Center, CMAC, through a combination of financial assistance, provision of equipment, as well as human resource development and institutional capacity building. This has led to technical improvement and operational efficiency in the demining activities, but maybe more importantly, it also enhanced the management system and general organizational capacity at CMAC headquarters. This has contributed to strengthening CMAC's collaboration with relevant ministries, local authorities, donors, international organizations, etc., leading to the planning and implementation of mine action in a manner that promotes reconstruction and development in Cambodia. The development of a legal framework for mine action programs was also promoted. Therefore, Japan believes that support to strengthening the autonomous functions of national organizations in mine-affected countries through capacity building will promote coordination within the affected countries and with donors. This will also lead to effective operation of the National Mine Action Platform where it is established. Japan also values cooperation with international and other organizations that contributes to enhanced coordination, such as HDP, Humanitarian Development Peace Nexus, or other international agendas such as WSP. I'd like to mention 2 examples of cooperation with the UNDP. One such coordination with another sector in the affected country is Zimbabwe. There, Japan is implementing mine clearance and agricultural development in mine-contaminated areas in northern part of the country. This has been done in partnership with the UNDP and in cooperation with the Zimbabwe Mine Action Center and the Ministry of Agriculture of Zimbabwe. The other example is enhancing synergies between mine action and the WPS agenda. I said WPS agenda. In Sri Lanka, also in cooperation with the UNDP, Japan has provided facilities for female mine clearance workers to assist their mine clearance and capacity building activities. My third point is sharing the good practices and lessons learned. Currently, and now I come to the, I think this slide. Japan is supporting a wide range of programs under the comprehensive package of assistance for humanitarian mine action. This was announced in the summer of 2024 and aims to responding to various needs from mine risk education, humanitarian demining to victim assistance. One specific approach under this package is so-called triangular cooperation, sharing good practices and promote cooperations between and among mine-affected countries supported by Japan. For example, through cooperation between JICA and CIMAC, Cambodia's knowledge and experience on mine action has been shared with more than 800 people from various countries, including Angola, Colombia, Ethiopia, Iraq, Lao PDR, Nigeria, Somalia, South Sudan, Ukraine, Vietnam, and Zambia. Based on a similar approach, Japan announced the Africa Mine Action Platform at Tokyo International Conference for African Development, TICAD 9, in August last year, to advance these efforts in Africa in cooperation with AMAS. So, to sum up my three main points, the importance of national ownership of affected countries assisted by donors through capacity building. This needs strong political leadership and the whole of the government approach in the affected countries. It also needs sustained assistance by donors. 2, coordination led by affected countries based on their own needs, bearing in mind HDP nexus and synergies with other agendas such as WPS. International organizations can play an important role in this regard. Third, benefit of triangular cooperation between and among affected countries supported by donors to share good practices, knowledge, and experience. With that, I would like to, I hope this made a bit of introduction to the more concrete discussions on the national platforms by affected countries. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. At the fourth review conference in Oslo, the Committee on the Enhancement of Cooperation and Assistance presented to the state parties a model national mine action platform and encouraged states to consider developing their own context-specific national mine action platform. Subsequently, at the fifth review conference in Siem Reap, the committee was mandated to support state parties with the establishment of national mine action platforms where applicable. A national mine action platform does not have to be complicated at its essence. It is a platform that brings together all national and international stakeholders to meet a minimum twice a year to discuss the status of implementation and requirement of assistance. The Maputo Action Plan in 2014 captured this essence well, to enter into partnership for completion with partners specifying their responsibilities to each other, to ensure that we all commit, to ensure that we are all accountable, and to ensure that we move in one direction at a national level. It is our view that mine-affected countries, those that support them, the donor state, and technical partners need to stay synchronized and need to stay in regular dialogue. We have already seen the limit of short-term funding when it comes to mine action. We need long-term partnership. Now, it is my pleasure to offer the floor to Bosnia and Herzegovina and to Lebanon. Congratulations once again for your accession. Bosnia and Herzegovina and Lebanon will offer us an overview of the platform they have in place, as well as successes and challenges. Mr. Serak, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bosnia and Herzegovina have the one mechanism of the coordination of the in Bosnia and Herzegovina means Board of Donors. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, next slide please. The Bosnia and Herzegovina is 2002 and the Board of Donors mechanism was established based on the demining law, Article 15, which defined the role of the international organization, donors, and the national institutional authority to consider also mine action. Coordination by the Ministry of the Civil Affairs of Bosnia and Herzegovina with support of the United Nations Development Program. It is held in twice a year. Next slide, please. Period before the Board of Donors 2002, it's very important for Bosnia and Herzegovina. In 1996, it's finished war in the Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Bosnia and Herzegovina government asked the United Nations to help to solve the problem of the mines in Bosnia and Herzegovina. In that period, in 1996-1997, United Nations established UN MAC, and the story about the mining process comes in Bosnia and Herzegovina. In the first couple of years, the main point of the whole of that work was to build capacity, ownership, and capacity in both Bosnia and Herzegovina, and that time in Bosnia and Herzegovina was the many international organizations. Outcome in 2002, Board of Donors has established a formal coordination mechanism between national institution, international organization, and the donor community. Next, please. Main function of the Board of Donors, it's coordinate cooperation between a mine action institution and donors, review progress and funding needs, promote transparency and accountability, support research, mobilization, and donor agreement. The key topics: mine clearance priority and results, funding the requirement and donors contribution, mine risk education and victim assistance, governance, reporting, and strategic planning. Partners, the main organization in Bosnia and Herzegovina is Ministry of the Civil Affairs and the Mining Commission. Of course, we are like Mine Action Center is a technical body of the Mining Commission. Whole time in our country, it's United Nations Development Program who is very good at support this program. Of course, the donors, government, and international organization. SIGN established the coordination platform and of the action found and cooperation, support implementation on the national mine action strategy, and complete this goal. Next, please. 20 years where we established the Board of Donors, and it's happened the many of the things. In that period of 25 years, programs go up and down, increase and decrease. In first 10 years of the programs, in Board of Donors was more than 20 organization, international organization, of course, and the main donors and embassy in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The key challenge in Bosnia and Herzegovina, it's 12 years ago when in Bosnia and Herzegovina happened the huge floods and landslide, who is the catch more than half of the country. In that period, the interest of the demining progress, it was in the degrees, and in the help of the United Nations Development Program, we established again the Board of Donors in full capacity till the COVID-19. In that period, whole activities was a freeze, like in the whole world. In this moment, we also have the challenge because the main donors in Bosnia and Herzegovina in 2024 and 2025 also leave in our case of the demining progress. The current challenge is of course present because Bosnia and Herzegovina asked the new extension period of the 5 years, and we hope that the main donors will come and stay together with the Bosnia and Herzegovina to a large program of the European Union and the World Bank, River Bank. It's present on Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we calculate that it's enough for the next 2 years. But after that, we will also need support of the donors. The main challenge also is ownership of the program, because Bosnia and Herzegovina have capacity of the funding not more than 40%, and our other finance comes from the donors. That part we try to keep on the same level or to be better. Next, please. Next, please. One body who is come in Bosnia and Herzegovina from the beginning, it's also the technical working group. This is a very important group. It's not part of the Board of Donors, but it's part of the Mine Action in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Practically in that working group we have whole demining organization, and we are working every 2 months together. It's very important for the BHMAC, Mine Action Center in Bosnia and Herzegovina, to work with the whole organization who is present, who is accredited in Bosnia and Herzegovina, to have new ideas, to clear picture about the future, and everything of that was the task for the working group. And this is for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Serak, for your example and for sharing with us some of the challenges and future plans to strengthen this national dialogue in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Now, Colonel Njem, we have heard a lot of good things from the Lebanese Forum, and it's a pleasure to turn to you to hear more about how this is set up and on your experience. You have the floor.
Merci, Votre Excellence. The pleasure is mine to share with you Lebanon National Platform experience with the Mine Action Forum. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, what I would like to do is quite simple. I will briefly explain what the forum is, how it works in practice, and why it has been useful in Lebanon. Because in the end, what makes this forum interesting is that it's not simply a meeting format. It's a practical way of turning coordination challenges into shared action. Next slide, please. As you can see on this first slide, the Mine Action Forum is a national coordination platform that brings together the main stakeholders involved in mine action in Lebanon. It was established in November 2016, initially in the context of Lebanon obligations under the Convention on Cluster Munitions. Over time, however, it developed into a broader platform serving the mine action sector as a whole. In simple terms, it created one structured space where the national authority, donors, UN partners, operators, and technical actors could come together around shared priorities, common challenges, and practical solutions. At the beginning, the forum was led by Norway and the Netherlands in their role as coordinators under the Convention on Cluster Munitions. Today, it follows a champion donor approach, with the Netherlands playing that role in close coordination with ALMAC and UNDP. ALMAC, as a national authority, remains at the center of the process, while UNDP supports the forum as secretariat, including coordination, invitations, and meeting arrangement. This combination matters because it brings together national ownership and international support. Another important point on this slide is the setting. The forum is usually held on a neutral ground, in a closed format. This may sound like a small detail, but in practice, it makes a real difference. It helps create a professional and trusted space where participants can speak openly, discuss sensitive issues frankly, and focus on substance. And I think this is one of the reasons the forum has been valuable. The challenge is not the lack of commitment, but the lack of one trusted space where priorities, constraints, and action points can be discussed together. So the main point here is that the forum is more than a meeting. It's a practical coordination mechanism that brings the right people together in a way that supports trust, dialogue, and follow-up. Now, once the structure is in place, the next question is, how does it actually work in practice? Next slide, please. The second slide shows the practical side of the forum. And in many ways, this is where its strength lies. the value of the forum is not only in who attends, but also in how it organized. In its earlier years, it was held twice a year. Today, it's convened one a year at a higher level, with technical working groups meetings continuing throughout the year. This helped maintain both strategic direction and regular follow-up. The process itself is quite straightforward. First, participants review the action points agreed during the previous cycle. This allows everyone to look at what has been completed, what is still in progress, and what remains pending. Second, the discussion moves to the main issues facing the sector. This may include operational challenges, technical matters, funding concerns, policy questions, or new development that require collective attention. Third, participants agree on a new set of action points for the next period. These are documented, shared with stakeholders, and then reviewed again in the following cycle. So this is not a forum for discussion only. It's designed to support implementation, and this is one of its key strengths. It connects discussion with action and action with follow-up. As the slide also shows, participant is broad. The forum brings together ALMAC as a national authority, donors, embassies, UN agencies, national and international NGOs, support partners, and the Lebanese armed forces, and other relevant stakeholders. Depending on the agenda, technical experts may also be invited when needed. This broad participation matters because it allows strategic, operational, and technical perspectives to meet in one place. The scope of the forum has also evolved over time. While it began with a focus on cluster munition clearance under the CCM commitments, it now covers the wider mine action agenda. This includes land release, clearance, explosive ordnance risk education, victim assistance, national standards, information management, treaty reporting, funding gaps, and other emerging priorities. And this is important because the forum has not remained fixed. It has evolved over time, and that's part of why it has remained relevant. What I have shared here, of course, is only the visible structure. In practice, much of the value comes from the trust, the discipline, and the follow-up behind it. This brings me to the final point, which is why this has mattered in practice. Next slide, please. The final slide focuses on the value of the forum. The forum has helped improve the way the mine action sector works together in Lebanon. First, it has strengthened coordination by providing a regular space for dialogue, review, and priority setting. Second, it has improved follow-up by ensuring that agreed action points are recorded, shared, and revisited. This has helped create greater continuity and accountability from one cycle to the next. Third, it has supported a more inclusive process for discussing standards, operational priorities, and sector-wide challenges. It has also helped strengthen dialogue with donors and partners, which in turn support better planning and more informed discussions around needs, priorities, and resources. More broadly, the forum has helped create a clear link between discussion, decision-making, and implementation. That, in many ways, is where its real value lies. Lebanon's experience also offers a few practical lessons. First is that strong national ownership is essential. A platform like this works best when the national authority leads the process clearly and consistently. The second is that inclusion matters. When the main actors are part of the discussion, the outcome is usually more realistic, more balanced, and more credible. The third is that structure matters. A forum becomes much more useful when it's built around review-focused discussion, clear action points, and regular follow-up. And finally, continuity matters. The real benefit does not come from one meeting alone, but from sustained engagement over time. The value of this experience is not only in what Lebanon has done, but also in the fact that parts of this model may be adapted in other contexts as well. I think that's also what makes this topic worth discussing beyond Lebanon itself. Because beyond the format, the forum offers useful lessons on ownership, coordination, and how to keep dialogue linked to implementation. and thank you.
Thank you very much, Colonel James, for this inspiring presentation. One of the things that we have seen work well is when an organization supports the national authority in convening such a national platform. Now, every context is different, and this is not always necessary. But in many contexts, organizations such as UNDP can provide meetings facilities, secretariat support, and at times, high-tech meeting facilities to take advantage of technology to host hybrid meetings. This is something we have learned over the last 6 years or so, the art of online communication. And I think it's critical for this Mind Action platform to ensure that the right people are in the room, in person indeed, but also remotely or virtually. With this said, I would like to turn to the UNDP with such an organization. So, Mr. Essen, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And let me also start by congratulating Lebanon for acceding to the convention, and to both PHMAC and LMAC for successful hosting the Mind Action Forum, not only for years, but now for decades. And yes, I have been inspired by the ongoing World Cup in football. So together with my very good friend, the co-pilot, I have created this very successful team, a world champion team. It's taken from the Mind Action platform in Lebanon, and I just want to talk a little bit about some of these key players on this team. But let me start by saying that both Bosnia-Herzegovina and Lebanon has really demonstrated that the Mind Action platform concept is a recipe for success. At its best, like in Bosnia-Herzegovina and Lebanon, it moves coordination from ad hoc conversation to structured mechanisms for dialogue and accountability. We know it works. So why have so many countries, why have so few countries established or managed to sustain an effective national Mind Action platform? In the ongoing World Cup in football, the winners will be the team where all players know their roles, able to play each other good, and where all work towards commonly agreed game plan. In a national Mind Action program, the same principles apply. A successful Mind Action program is fundamentally about team effort. It's not enough to have a committed donor, a capable operator, or a strong national authority in isolation. It's all about teamwork. Quality, efficiency, impact comes when these actors interact regularly, align around shared priorities, openly discuss challenges, and are willing to solve problems together. So why don't we have a Mind Action platform in every mine-affected country? We have the systems, we have the mechanisms in place, but without a team of individuals willing to invest in cooperation and coordination, we will not succeed. And I think this is the core problem in many countries. So who are the key players in a successful Mind Action platform team? Let me highlight a few, and starting with the captain of the team. And in my view, that should always be the Mind Action Center. I think it's evident that the Mind Action platform will only function if the National Mind Action Authority and the Mind Action Center management team is fully on board. National ownership and commitment is paramount. Lebanon has for the last 10 years had a very strong and competent Mind Action Center. They've had the authority and experience to lead and guide the Mind Action sector in Lebanon. Not all Mind Action programs are that fortunate. That means, as a sector, we must continue to invest in national capacities. We have a collective responsibility to build a robust Mind Action Center with the competence and confidence to manage a mine action platform, to be scrutinized at a regular basis. Another important player, and now I'm putting on my UNEP hat, is the facilitator, as illustrated in this picture. In my opinion, every mine action platform needs a facilitator, an organization or individual able to take some of the workload and responsibilities away from the Mine Action Center. It is critical for any state to identify the organization best placed to serve in this capacity. I believe that this role is best managed by a neutral third party, not an operator, not the Mine Action Center itself. UNDP has had the pleasure of serving as the facilitator both in Lebanon and in Bosnia-Herzegovina. However, other organizations have played similar roles in other contexts: UNMAS, GICHD, UNICEF, the Mine Action Review. I encourage mine action directors to reach out to the UN and other relevant in-country actors seeking support to establish the Mine Action Platform and ask them to serve as platform facilitators. Another obvious critical player is the donors, and on this team it's illustrated by the Netherlands and Norway, since they were the one initiating the platform in Lebanon back in the days. So the question is, how do affected states find an ambassador, an embassy, or a donor willing to engage in mine action? It doesn't have to be the biggest financial contributor to the mine action program. They just need to be willing to invest time, show interest in the topic, and be willing to serve as the donor champion over time. Can the Mine Action Support Group help to divide the championship role between key donors to the mine action sector? Could each major donors to the sector serve as a champion in 1 or 2 countries each? Or can the ISU and the Committee of Cooperation and Assistance help to engage donors at country level? I will mention one more player, and maybe the key player is operators, here illustrated by international NGOs, local NGOs, and the Lebanon Armed Forces. How can they contribute to making the platform a useful arena? In my experience, the operators will always welcome coordination mechanisms such as the Mine Action Platform. However, a precondition is that they are willing to engage in the meetings, share best practices, raise operational challenges honestly, and contribute to collective learning. So to conclude, mine action platforms work when they are built around teamwork, trust, and shared responsibilities. The question is not whether one actor is strong, but whether the system as a whole is working together. If we want better results, we need to invest not only in capacities and funding, but also in the relationship and coordination mechanisms that allow all players to perform as a team. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eisen, for your intervention and for your offer to support state parties in this regard. The committee looks forward to working with you. Now to wrap things up, and before I turn to the audience, along with partnering with an organization, there has also been a lot of conversation on a partner donor country, a state that could support in convening other donors to join forces and to support state in getting over the line as soon as possible. One of the great things about the implementation of the convention is that it is often a finite task. Together, through investment in partnership, we can achieve success. The UK has, of course, been one of the leading donors in mine action, and we certainly appreciate all its support to mine-affected countries. So it is a great pleasure to turn to Ambassador Riley for some time to wrap up the intervention from the panel. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to you and the President for convening this panel, and good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you also to the work of the committee for how they have sought to further advance progress under Article 6 of the Convention. I want to talk briefly about the UK's own support for Mine Action and then touch on our role as chair of the Mine Action Support Group and how it relates to some of the conversations we've had here today. Many of you will know that the UK supports Mine Action through what's called the Global Mine Action Programme, and we're currently in our third iteration of that programme. Since April 2022, we are proud to have cleared and confirmed safe almost 45 million square metres of land and delivered risk education sessions, to over 1.3 million people living in mine-affected communities. And we have extended GMAP 3 into 2027, funding support to 10 partner countries, tackling both legacy contamination but also responding to new crises as they evolve. GMAP expects to spend over £50 million over the next 3 years, and this will be mainly delivered through the next iteration of GMAP, the creatively named GMAP 4. GMAP 4 will evolve UK mine action support in line with the UK's new modernised approach to development. So that means continuing to fund demining and risk education, increased partnership and technical support to mine-affected states, a renewed commitment to innovative finance. As we discussed today, the funding gap continues to grow, and we must be more creative, more innovative in how we are tapping into alternative funding sources. And lastly, a redoubled effort to support women and girls. And we absolutely see a strong need to empower local leadership, as Tomiko said in her opening presentation today, and are looking actively in this regard in how we can use GMAP 4 to directly support local mine action authorities. And we hope to launch in the coming days our consultation on GMAP 4. We want to engage with all stakeholders to see how we can collectively shape the next iteration of GMAP to best support the needs of host countries and their communities. A quick word on the Mine Action Support Group that we've chaired over the past 18 months, and I should reinforce here that I don't speak on behalf of the donors collectively. That's not how the MASG operates, but I will offer some reflections on how the UK has approached our chairmanship of this particular period. We have sought to pursue a number of areas of cooperation, collaboration and outcomes. We've had a greater focus on a smaller number of geographical challenges where we believe that MASG can, or MASG consideration, can add value. We've tried to encourage greater information sharing and transparency about where the donor community is providing funding and the challenges and opportunities we face, be they political, be they capacity, be they security, but also understanding where there is rigidity built into some programs and flexibility in others, so that we can work more collaboratively and in a more agile fashion to respond to the needs as we see them. We have sought to facilitate stronger coordination on the ground between donors and with wider stakeholders. And this is where I believe this work dovetails most closely with the conversation we've had today on the panel. At our most recent MASG, both the closed session and the open session, we sought to encourage greater donor ownership of coordination on the ground amongst the donors, but of course in the context of wanting to see greater ownership from the mine action authorities within the host countries. And I wanted to sort of foot stomp something that UNDP said, which is we discussed in the MASG that you don't necessarily need to be the largest donor in order to take on this leadership role. Indeed, you don't need to be a donor to play a role within a host country on mine action support. You can often have political influence without necessarily bringing money to the table. And so we have to get away from the idea that money or influence is shaped only by pound signs or dollar signs. And we discussed that in particular. We had a really good session actually on Lebanon at the open session where we discussed that as a model of best practice. And can I just take this opportunity to give a shout out to Lucy, who's in the room somewhere. Lucy gave that presentation, but more importantly, I wanted to recognise that Lucy was recognised this week in His Majesty the King's birthday honours for her services to humanitarian mine action. So I just wanted to take this opportunity for the whole room perhaps can applaud Lucy for an honour very much deserved in my view. And lastly, the MASC has used our conversations to consider some of the blockers and the enablers to more effective mine action. That might be data provision, it could be harmonization of monitoring and impact assessments, it can be innovative financing. And all of these elements, I think, support in different ways the conversation we've had today, and in particular the points I think that were said by the Colonel on ensuring that we continue to have active multi-stakeholder engagement, that we continue to focus on specific actions and deliverables, and that we make sure that we are reviewing progress on a regular basis, and to do so in a harmonized and efficient and an effective way. And these are some of the issues we've sought to try to address through the UK chairmanship of the MASC. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador O'Reilly, for your very welcome intervention. We do hope that we can count on donor states to join in this effort. Thank you. À présent, mesdames et messieurs, distingués collègues, nous voulons ouvrir la parole, passer la parole à l'auditoire pour des échanges, des questions, des remarques, des commentaires éventuels. Indonésie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Indonesia thank the panelists for sharing valuable national experiences and practical lessons on strengthening cooperation and assistance under the convention. My delegation would like to share our observation and question to panelists. Today's discussion highlighted three important lessons for my delegation. Number one is that national ownership remains the foundation of effective mine action. International assistance is most effective when it responds to nationally identified priorities, strengthens domestic institutions, and is integrated into broader national development strategies. Second, effective coordination is indispensable. The different coordination mechanisms presented today, whether through donor coordination platform, technical working group, or national mine action forum, demonstrate that while there is no one-size-fits-all model, successful cooperation depends on inclusive participation, transparency, sustained dialogue, and strong national leadership. Third, cooperation should extend beyond financial assistance. Capacity building, technology transfer, technical exchanges, and South-South and triangular cooperation are equally important for building sustainable national capabilities. Mr. Chair, allow me to pose a question to the distinguished panelists. As global humanitarian and development resources are becoming increasingly constrained, how can mine affected states and development partners ensure that mine action remains a long-term national priority and continues to attract predictable financial and technical support, rather than being displaced by competing global crises? My delegation believes that this question is particularly relevant as we seek to implement the Siem Reap Angkor Action Plan over the coming years. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I propose we move on a series of questions and remarks, and after which the speakers will give their view. So I recognize Peru.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I have a national statement to deliver. Is this the right moment on assistance and cooperation, or should I wait till later? later on? Okay, fine.
If there is no other question, so let me give back the floor to the panelists. If anyone wants to react to the...
If only because I'm uncomfortable with silence, perhaps I can have a first stab and provoke a bit more response from my fellow panelists. I think that the heart of the challenge is clear. We have a greater demining need. We have a reducing, in some places, envelope of resourcing and funding, and this is all happening in the context of increasing instability and conflict. So the challenge is very real. We've talked about the need for national ownership. I think part of the challenge here is how we look at demining conceptually. I think we have rightly, traditionally focused on the humanitarian goals of demining, and that remains the sort of the core purpose of what we're trying to achieve under this treaty. But I think it's also important that we remember that demining has a role to play through the life cycle of security and stability and of socioeconomic opportunity. Whether it is supporting peace building, whether it is responding to the immediate consequences of conflict, or whether it is creating socioeconomic opportunity for those communities who have had to flee their homes, flee their businesses, flee their communities because of the challenge and the scourge of demining. And I think that perhaps is the way in which we can begin to try to both reinforce with host countries that the role that demining can play, not just in supporting the immediate humanitarian needs of their communities, but also the longer term socioeconomic opportunities of their communities and therefore of the government, but also in doing so try to encourage more diverse, more innovative funding from across a broader range of stakeholders.
Okay, UN Mass.
Thank you very much. This statement is delivered on behalf of the UN Interagency Coordination Group on Mine Action. Excellencies, effective coordination is demonstrated when a group's combined efforts generate results that exceed the sum of individual contributions. Across context, the UN works with national authorities, communities, NGOs, and commercial partners to strengthen coordination. From our experience, successful coordination hinges on three key elements: national leadership, sustained international engagement, and a neutral facilitator to bring people together, foster alignment, and build capacity to address gaps. In Nigeria, UNMAS helped the government craft its first mine action strategy for 2027-2031, setting out a roadmap to meet its convention's obligations. Concurrently, UNMAS is supporting national authorities to operationalize the Mine Action Center, ensuring the strategy can be implemented effectively. In Libya, representatives from 10 countries met during the second annual Libya Mine Action Support Group hosted by Italy and the UN in Tripoli a month ago to provide coordinated international support to Libyan-led efforts to address explosive ordnance contamination and strengthen civilian safety. In Iraq, we piloted the UNMAS partnership model 4 years ago, and this marked a major shift towards nationally owned clearance capacity. Through a not-for-profit grant modality, experienced international NGOs were paired with Iraqi NGOs to build institutional, managerial, and operational foundations needed for clearance. we need to do the same in many other countries and much faster. The model recognizes that national actors must first develop strong system, leadership, management, quality assurance, risk management and resource mobilization before focusing on clearance. By prioritizing capacity development, the approach left behind professional, nationally led clearance organizations that are safer, more effective, and more sustainable over the long term. In Lebanon, you've heard from Steiner and UNDP. The Lebanese mine action sector, with a long-standing relationship with UNDP, has analyzed current risk and in close cooperation with national and international partners, developed national standards and also addressing issues related to the risk within debris management, which are so critical when there's been a use of explosive weapons in urban areas. These examples illustrate a common principle. National leadership and capacity are a must. It is the only sustainable solution to the challenges we face. And international partners have a responsibility to coordinate their support to strengthen support and achieve sustainable national mine action ownership. Many colleagues in the room today will have attended the 29th International Meeting of the Mine Action National Directors and UN Advisors in April, in this same center. This event highlighting the growing strength of global cooperation in mine action, bringing together 815 participants from 86 countries and territories for 3 days in Geneva. Over 3 days, the meeting featured 45 sessions where 257 panelists shared their valuable insights from their varied experience, emphasizing the importance of inclusive dialogue and partnership in achieving our collective objectives. It was the largest NDM meeting, which means that the sector is still very strong and is incredibly generous in sharing learning and international cooperation. To summarize, 4 concrete results to be replicated in all contexts. Funding across all pillars of mine action should be well sustained and predictable to ensure continuity of operations. 2, national institutions should have all the capabilities to ensure long-term ownership of mine action programs. 3, partnerships should be well coordinated, aligning local needs and available resources and coordinating with relevant ministries, development, environment, health, housing. The UN is ready to work with all partners in all countries to support the implementation of these principles towards meeting the obligation of the Convention. Excellencies, I thank you.
Merci à UNMAS. Je pense qu'il y a une petite méprise au niveau de la liste des participants. Et par courtoisie, on ne pouvait pas couper la parole à UNMAS qui s'est certainement inscrit pour le deuxième volet. I recall that we are still on the panel, and I have on my list, Cambodia, GICHG, and Mine Action Review. If this is correct, Cambodia, you have the floor. You are also national statement. Okay, so is it any delegation will have to, we need to intervene in the panel? Question, Mine Action Review, okay.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just very quickly, thank you for your kind remarks, Ambassador Riley. I was extremely honoured to accept that award, and I just want to say it very much reflects my brilliant colleagues in the Mine Action Review team, and also everyone that supports and contributes to our work and for support of the conventions. Mine Action Review would like to take this opportunity to warmly congratulate Lebanon on its accession to the Mine Ban Convention. We very much look forward to continuing to work with LMAC in monitoring and analysing progress and challenges in addressing anti-personnel mines, now within the framework of Article 5 obligations. And I really just wanted to assert that Lebanon's Mine Action Forum is really an excellent example of an effective national coordination platform, as evidenced by the great presentations delivered by Colonel Najim and Steiner. I was very honoured to moderate a Mine Action Forum meeting in Beirut in September 2023. It's a very effective forum, and it's really encouraging to see the forum still continuing to operate so well and serving as an example of best practice to the sector. We really encourage other affected state parties to learn from this example and to establish national mine action coordination platforms adapted to their own country context. We were there to help start the establishment of Lebanon's Mine Action Forum, and we stand ready to support any other affected state party that wishes to establish a forum. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any delegation that want to engage with panelists? If no, maybe Ambassador really want to react. Excellencies, distinguished guests, let me now give a final word to first Ambassador Really, 1 minute to wrap up. Last word.
We all do 1 minute, or it's just
yes, just 1 minute. No, all the panelists.
I think we've said it all during the course of the panel and the conversation today. I think it's the main points I take from today are A, that we need to see very clear local ownership of this, and as we said in response to the Indonesian delegate, to look at this as the sort of the broader need and opportunity of host countries taking a lead on mine action. Secondly, that it requires, I think, enthusiastic donor engagement on the ground, not just in capitals, and that doesn't have to be from the major donor. And thirdly, looking at the success of Lebanon, that this needs to be a sort of a truly sort of multi-stakeholder approach. And I think those 3 points were themes that we saw throughout the comments and presentations from the panel here today. Thank you.
Mr. Essen? It's okay. Okay. So, thank you to all of you. Je prierai les délégations de rester assises pendant que nos panélistes se retirent et les autres membres du comité me rejoignent sur le panel. Et je vous invite une fois de plus à remercier nos intervenants par une bonne salve d'applaudissements. Chers collègues, nous allons poursuivre avec la deuxième partie de cette session. C'est un grand plaisir pour le Cameroun d'assurer la présidence du comité sur le renforcement de la coopération et de l'assistance, au sein duquel nous avons eu le privilège de travailler étroitement avec la Slovénie, la Suisse et la Thaïlande. Le comité a été créé, comme vous le savez, afin d'aider les États parties à assurer la pleine mise en œuvre de l'article 6 de la Convention relative à la coopération et l'assistance, conformément à leur réaffirmation selon laquelle mettre fin aux souffrances et aux pertes humaines causées par les mines antipersonnelles constitue une responsabilité partagée. Lors de la 5e conférence d'examen, les États parties ont une nouvelle fois reconnu que la coopération et l'assistance constituent un élément essentiel de la mise en œuvre de la Convention. Tout en réaffirmant que chaque État partie demeure responsable de la mise en œuvre des dispositions de la Convention dans les zones relevant de sa juridiction ou placées sous son contrôle, les États parties ont souligné qu'une coopération et une assistance renforcées et mieux coordonnées peuvent contribuer à l'exécution rapide des obligations conventionnelles, y compris les activités post-achèvement. En adoptant le plan d'action de SIMRIP encore, les États parties se sont engagés à mettre en œuvre un ensemble d'actions destinées à faciliter la coopération et l'assistance conformément à l'article 6 de la Convention. Chacune des actions relatives à la coopération et l'assistance reconnaît que les États affectés, tout comme les États en mesure de fournir une assistance, ont un rôle et une responsabilité à assumer pour renforcer ces mécanismes de coopération. Depuis la 22e réunion des États parties, nous nous sommes efforcés de mettre en œuvre notre mandat. Premièrement, en accompagnant les États parties souhaitant tirer parti du mécanisme de l'approche individualisée, Individualized Approach. À cet égard, nous nous réjouissons de la tenue, demain, de l'approche individualisée consacrée au Soudan du Sud, une session à laquelle nous vous convions. Nous invitons également tous les États intéressés à prendre contact avec le comité ou avec l'unité d'appui à l'implémentation s'ils souhaitent bénéficier de ce mécanisme en marge de la 23e réunion des États parties. Nous serons heureux de collaborer avec eux et les encourageons à nous solliciter en ce sens. Deuxièmement, en promouvant la mise en place de plateformes nationales de lutte anti-mine à travers nos échanges bilatéraux. Et troisièmement, en encourageant le partage de bonnes pratiques, notamment au moyen du Fonds de coopération et d'assistance, que nous espérons voir davantage utilisé. Là encore, nous invitons les délégations intéressées à échanger avec les membres du comité tout au long de cette semaine. Nous saluons également les informations fournies par les États parties sur les questions de coopération et d'assistance. Nos observations qui compilent les informations communiquées par les États à cet égard sont désormais disponibles en ligne. Toutefois, plusieurs domaines appellent encore des progrès. À titre d'exemple, seuls 11 États parties ont indiqué disposer d'un plan de mobilisation des ressources conformément à l'action 41 du plan d'action de SIMRIP encore. Seuls 6 États parties ont fait état d'efforts visant à renforcer la coordination avec les parties prenantes nationales et internationales. Et un seul État partie a rendu compte des mesures prises pour renforcer la coordination de son soutien en faveur de la mise en œuvre effective des obligations conventionnelles par les États parties affectés, conformément à l'action 44 du plan d'action de SIMRIP encore. En résumé, nous pouvons faire mieux et nous devons faire mieux. Nous espérons poursuivre notre dialogue avec vous tous et améliorer collectivement nos pratiques en matière de coopération, d'assistance, mais également de rapportage. L'on note encore une marge importante de progression, mais nous savons pouvoir compter sur l'engagement de tous pour y parvenir. Dear colleagues, before I open the floor for state interventions, I wanted to offer the floor for some brief remarks from our agenda focal point, Mateja Kavas, Minister of the Permanent Mission of Slovenia. Mateja, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, it is an honor to take the floor as the gender focal point of the Committee on the Enhancement of Cooperation and Assistance. In advancing this important mandate, Slovenia is pleased to work alongside our colleagues from Cameroon, Switzerland, and Thailand. As we open this session on cooperation and assistance, I wish to underscore a central message. Mine action is most effective when it is inclusive, equitable, and takes into consideration the diverse needs of members of mine-affected communities. We know that the impact of anti-personnel mines is not gender-neutral. Women, girls, boys, men, landmine survivors, persons with disabilities, and other marginalized groups experience different risks, face different barriers, and contribute differently to recovery and resilience. Yet efforts to take into account their perspectives when it comes to cooperation and assistance remain underreported. It is essential that both affected and donor states integrate gender and diversity considerations into their cooperation and assistance efforts, and that they report transparently on these efforts. We commend those states that have begun disaggregating data, consulting affected communities, and tailoring assistance to specific needs. These are important steps, but we must go further. Gender and diversity are not optional adds-on. They are core elements of effective, accountable, and sustainable mine action. Under the Siem Reap Anchor Action Plan, states parties in a position to do so are encouraged to provide assistance that is grounded in a sound analysis of community needs, taking into account gender, age, disability, and other relevant considerations, including climate and environmental factors. States are also encouraged to support local organizations where appropriate. The question is, are we achieving these aims? As a committee, we encourage all states parties to reflect these commitments in their annual Article 7 reports. States in a position to provide assistance should report not only on the level of assistance provided, but also on how gender and diversity are integrated into their cooperation efforts. Likewise, affected states should report on how national strategies, plans, and coordination mechanisms ensure inclusivity by design. At present, Canada, Japan, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, and Switzerland have reported on how they incorporate gender and the diverse needs of affected communities into their assistance efforts. This is twice as many as last year. We can and must do better, though. As we move towards the 23rd meeting of the states parties, my intention as gender focal point is to address this gap in reporting by reaching out to you for additional information on your practices of integrating gender into cooperation and assistance. I look forward to your support, and I thank you.
Thanks very much, Mateja. Nous allons à présent passer la parole aux délégations pour vos déclarations nationales. First on my list, Thailand.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thailand would like to express appreciation to Cameroon for its leadership in the Committee on Enhancement of Cooperation and Assistance. Thailand is honored to be re-elected to serve on the committee. We believe that international cooperation and assistance are indispensable to the full implementation of the Convention. They enable affected states parties to meet their obligations, strengthen national capacities, and translate our shared commitments under the Siem Reap Angkor Action Plan into tangible results on the ground. Cooperation and assistance also reinforce the integrity and credibility of the Convention, promote a culture of compliance, and demonstrate its continued relevance in addressing contemporary humanitarian challenges. Mr. President, Thailand wishes to highlight 4 key considerations for strengthening international cooperation and assistance. First, cooperation and assistance must be driven by the needs and priorities of affected state parties. Support should be tailored to national circumstances and responsive to the needs of affected communities. Second, international cooperation and assistance should complement strong national ownership, integrating mine action into broader national strategic frameworks of socio-economic development. contribute to building sustainable national capacities for mine action. Third, effective partnerships require transparency, regular dialogue, and the exchange of knowledge, expertise, and best practices among state parties and other stakeholders in the true spirit of the Convention. Fourth, as reaffirmed in the action plan, predictable and sustained support in capacity building, technical assistance, and resource mobilization remains essential for affected state parties to meet their obligations under the Convention. Mr. President, Thailand remains committed to the international mine action efforts. We extend our support through capacity building, technical cooperation, and the sharing of knowledge and experiences with both state and non-state parties, including through our regular technical exchanges with the Lao PDR and humanitarian demining cooperation with Ukraine. Regionally, Thailand engaged in initiatives and activities under the ASEAN Regional Mine Action Center in areas of knowledge sharing on mine and explosive remnant of wars. This commitment is further reflected in Thailand's Center of Excellence on Humanitarian Demining, established in 2025 to serve as a platform for training, skills development, and operational cooperation at both regional and international levels. At the same time, Thailand has benefited greatly from international cooperation and assistance in advancing our humanitarian demining efforts. To date, we successfully cleared more than 99.5% of its mine-contaminated areas. We express our sincere appreciations to our partners for their valuable support for our mine action efforts, including the United States, Norway, Japan, the EU, Germany, the GICHD, and the NPA. Mr. President, despite this progress, we found additional contaminated areas as a result of the situation along the Thai-Cambodian border. Thailand therefore underscores the need for its fourth extension request. Thailand is committed to working closely with Cambodia on humanitarian demining in line with the joint statement between Thailand and Cambodia signed on the 27th of December 2025 to ensure that clearance operations can proceed without interruption and prevent further contamination. We also conduct resurvey activity to identify and clear areas affected by the recent situation and ensure the safety of surrounding communities. Thailand welcomes continued international cooperation and assistance, particularly in the provision of advanced technical equipment and technical expertise to strengthen national capacity towards the completion of Thailand's mine clearance obligations. As a member of the Committee of Enhancement of Cooperation and Assistance, we stand ready to work with all partners to advance implementation of the Convention and support mine-affected states in fulfilling their obligations toward a mine-free world. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Thailand. Le prochain sur ma liste des orateurs est le Mali, suivi de l'État de Palestine.
Monsieur le Président, la République du Mali réaffirme son attachement indéfectible aux objectifs et aux principes de la Convention sur l'interdiction des mines antipersonnelles, instrument fondamental du droit international humanitaire visant à protéger les populations civiles contre les effets dévastateurs de ces armes. Le Mali salue l'adoption du plan d'action de CIMREP qui constitue une feuille de route ambitieuse et pragmatique pour renforcer la mise en œuvre de la Convention au cours des prochaines années. Ce plan traduit la volonté collective des États parties d'accélérer les progrès en matière de déminage, d'assistance aux victimes, de destruction de stocks, de sensibilisation aux risques liés aux mines et de coopération internationale. Monsieur le Président, le contexte sécuritaire auquel le Mali est confronté demeure particulièrement complexe. La présence et l'utilisation d'engins explosifs improvisés, y compris ceux fonctionnant comme des mines antipersonnelles, continuent de menacer la sécurité des populations civiles, de restreindre l'accès humanitaire et de compromettre les efforts de développement socio-économique dans plusieurs régions du pays. Face à ces défis, le Mali poursuit ses efforts pour renforcer ses capacités nationales de lutte contre les mines, améliorer la collecte et l'analyse des données, développer les activités d'éducation au risque et assurer une meilleure prise en charge des victimes. Toutefois, l'ampleur des besoins exige une mobilisation accrue de la coopération internationale. À cet égard, le Mali souligne l'importance du principe de responsabilité partagée consacré par la Convention et réaffirmé par le plan d'action de CIMREP. Nous appelons les États parties en mesure de le faire, ainsi que les organisations internationales, les agences des Nations Unies, les partenaires techniques et financiers et les organisations de la société civile à poursuivre et à renforcer leur soutien aux pays affectés. Cette assistance demeure essentielle pour renforcer les capacités nationales de déminage et de gestion de l'action anti-mine, développer les systèmes de collecte et de gestion des données, améliorer l'assistance médicale et socio-économique aux victimes, soutenir les programmes d'éducation au risque des mines et engins explosifs improvisés, promouvoir l'innovation, le transfert de technologies et le partage des bonnes pratiques. Monsieur le Président, le Mali demeure convaincu que la coopération internationale constitue un levier indispensable pour atteindre les objectifs de la Convention et réaliser la vision d'un monde exempt de mines antipersonnelles. Dans cet esprit, nous réaffirmons notre engagement à renforcer la coordination avec l'ensemble des partenaires concernés, à promouvoir la transparence dans la mise en œuvre de nos obligations conventionnelles et à contribuer activement aux échanges d'expériences entre les parties. En conclusion, la République du Mali réitère sa détermination à poursuivre les efforts pour protéger les populations civiles affectées, répondre aux besoins des victimes et progresser vers un avenir plus sûr, conformément aux engagements pris dans le cadre de la Convention et du plan d'action de CIMREP. Je vous remercie.
Merci au Mali, State of Palestine, followed by Sudan.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السيدات والسادة الحضور الكريم، يسعدني أن أتناول اليوم معكم الدور الحيوي للتعاون والمساعدة الدولية في دعم الأعمال المتعلقة بالألغام في فلسطين وغيرها، باعتبارهما عنصرين أساسيين في تعزيز القدرات الوطنية والاستجابة الفعالة للتحديات الإنسانية والتنموية الناجمة عن الألغام والمخلفات الحرب. وفي هذا السياق تؤكد مخرجات قمة سيام ريب أهمية ترسيخ الملكية الوطنية والشفافية وتعزيز الدعم الموجه للتنفيذ وتوفير المساعدة القائمة على الاحتياجات المستدامة إلى جانب توسيع نطاق تبادل الخبرات والممارسات الجيدة وبناء شراكات فعالة ومنصات وطنية قوية بما يدعم تحقيق الأهداف المشتركة ويعزز أمن المجتمعات المتضررة. الحضور الكريم، إن مواجهة آثار الألغام ومخلفات الحرب تتطلب جهودا جماعية وشراكات فعالة، وفي فلسطين حيث تتجاوز التحديات والقدرات الوطنية المتاحة يشكل التعاون الدولي القائم على الثقة والشفافية ركيزة أساسية لتحقيق استجابة مستدامة تلبي احتياجات المجتمعات المتضررة. وفي هذا السياق تشكل المنصات الوطنية للعمل المتعلق بالألغام أداة أساسية لتعزيز الملكية الوطنية وتحسين التنسيق بين مختلف الشركاء، فهذه المنصات توفر إطاراً منظماً لتبادل المعلومات وتحديد الأولويات الوطنية وتوجيه الموارد نحو الاحتياجات الأكثر إلحاحاً، بما يضمن الاستخدام الأمثل للدعم المتاح ويمنع الازدواجية في الجهد. كما أن تعزيز مشاركة الجهات المانحة في هذه المنصات يساهم في موائمة التمويل مع الأولويات الوطنية الفعلية ويعزز من فاعلية المساعدات المقدمة واستدامتها، فالتمويل القائم على الاحتياجات والأدلة والبيانات الدقيقة يحقق أثر أكبر ويسهم في تسريع التقدم نحو تحقيق الأهداف المشتركة. وفي الحالة الفلسطينية فإن تعزيز الشراكات الوطنية والدولية وتطوير منصة وطنية شاملة للعمل المتعلق بالألغام من شأنه أن يدعم جهود المركز الفلسطيني والشركاء كافة، وأن يعزز تبادل المعلومات والتخطيط المشترك وتنسيق الدعم الفني والمالي بما يسهم في حماية المواطنين وتقليل المخاطر وتهيئة بيئة أكثر أمنا للتنمية والاستقرار. إننا نؤمن بأن نجاح العمل المتعلق بالألغام لا يقاس فقط بعدد المناطق التي يتم تطهيرها، بل أيضا بقدرتنا على بناء شراكات قوية وتعزيز القيادة الوطنية وضمان مشاركة فعالة لجميع الأطراف المعنية في صنع القرار وتنفيذ الحلول. ختاما، نجدد دعوتنا إلى مواصلة التعاون الدولي الذي من شأنه أن يعزز ويرفع من كفاءة طاقم المركز ويحسن مستوى التنسيق مع الجهات الدولية، ويضمن توجيه الدعم نحو الأولويات الوطنية وتقليل المخاطر وتعزيز الاستثمار في الكوادر الوطنية ودعم المنصة باعتبارها حجر الأساس لتحقيق التقدم المستدام في العمل المتعلق بالألغام. شكرا لكم.
Sudan, followed by Tajikistan.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السيد الرئيس، أصحاب السعادة، الزملاء الكرام، السيدات والسادة، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. بداية يطيب لي أن أعرب نيابة عن وفد جمهورية السودان عن خالص الشكر والتقدير لجميع الدول الأعضاء على دعمها المتواصل للسودان، كما نتوجه بالشكر للجنة تعزيز التعاون والمساعدة في الاتفاقية على جهودها المقدرة. سيد الرئيس، تواصل بلادنا في إطار التزامها باتفاقية أتوا تقديم دعم سنوي لبرنامج مكافحة الألغام، ورغم الظروف الصعبة التي فرضها الحرب، فقد حرصت الحكومة السودانية على توفير التمويل اللازم لدعم نشر في إزالة الألغام في المناطق الآمنة، وذلك منذ أبريل 2024 وحتى الآن. سيد الرئيس، وفي إطار حشد الموارد وفقا للإجراء 40 خطة عمل سيام ريب، ينظم المركز القومي لمكافحة الألغام بالتعاون مع مكتب الأمم المتحدة لخدمات مكافحة الألغام اجتماعا سنويا لمجموعة دعم أنشطة مكافحة الألغام في السودان، بحضور كل من وزير الدفاع، مدير المركز، مدير مكتب الأمم المتحدة، والممثل المقيم للأمين العام للأمم المتحدة ومجموعة المانحين. وقد عقد آخر اجتماع في مارس 2023 قبل اندلاع الحرب. سيد الرئيس، من المؤسف أن عددا كبيرا من المانحين بات يتجنب اللقاء مع وفد السودان بعد اندلاع الحرب، رغم الحاجة الإنسانية الماسة للدعم في ظل كارثة أثرت بشكل مباشر على حياة المدنيين. وتخصص هذه الاجتماعات لمناقشة الآتي: استعراض التحديات التي تواجه برنامج مكافحة الألغام في السودان، دراسة الفرص والمتاحة لتمكين السودان من الوفاء بالتزاماته بموجب الاتفاقية، إبراز أهمية التنسيق والتعاون بين الشركاء، تأكيد دعم المانحين والتزامهم المستمر بتمويل المشاريع لتحقيق الأهداف المشتركة. بذل المركز القومي لمكافحة الألغام جهدا وطنيا كبيرا في إنشاء المركز الإقليمي الإنساني لتدريب العاملين في مجال الألغام، وذلك بدعم وطني خالص. ويسرنا في هذا السياق أن نتوجه بالشكر لمكتب الأمم المتحدة لخدمة مكافحة الألغام ودولة اليابان على تعاونهما في تأسيس هذه المنصة التدريبية الإقليمية التي يمكن لدول الجوار الاستفادة منها مستقبلا. كما نشكر دولة إيطاليا على رغبتها السابقة في دعم إنشاء سكن المتدربين، وهو المشروع الذي تعذر تنفيذه بسبب اندلاع الحرب. بهذا نجدد الدعوة لدولة إيطاليا ولكافة الشركاء لتقديم الدعم اللازم لاستكمال هذا الصرح التعليمي الهام. سيد الرئيس، وفقا للإجراء 41 من خطة عمل سيام ريب، نظم السودان جلسة جانبية على النهج الفردي قدم من خلالها شرحا للوضع القائم الآن والخطة المستقبلية للتعامل مع المخاطر ومتطلبات تنفيذ الخطة، مستهدفا بحث إمكانية إيجاد حلول للتحديات التي تواجه البرنامج للإيفاء بالتزاماته. وفي الختام، يجدد السودان التزامه الكامل بمواصلة التعاون والتنسيق مع الشركاء والمانحين والوكالات والمنظمات العاملة في مجال مكافحة الألغام سعيا لتحقيق الأهداف المنشودة. كما نأمل في تعزيز التعاون بين الدول الأعضاء لتبادل الخبرات وتحقيق هدفنا المشترك وهو عالم خال من الألغام. شكرا لكم.
Thank you very much, Sudan. I now give the floor to Tajikistan, followed by Yemen.
Dear Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, on behalf of Tajikistan National Mine Action Center, I'm honored to present overall results of the cooperation and assistance activities in the frame of the implementation of Tajikistan National Mine Action Program. Let me present these achievements. The key pillars of humanitarian mine action in Tajikistan are: Tajikistan National Mine Action Program operates in all pillars of the mine action. Clearance, systematic removal of mines and UXO to release land. Risk education, teaching communities how to stay safe. Victim assistance, support for those injured. Survey and mapping, identifying contaminated areas. Advocacy of the ban on the use of the antipersonnel mines, landmines. Our targets are clear. Achieve a mine-free Tajikistan by 2032. Ensure zero civilian casualties from mines. Restore safe access to land for agriculture and development. Together, we are turning contaminated fields into safe fields, one step at a time. Significant results have been achieved by the Tajikistan National Mine Action Program since 2004 until the end of 2025. Our 37.8 million square meters contaminated land released. Identified and destroyed 129,130 landmines and explosive remnants of war. 454 hazard areas have been handed over to the local communities for the safe use. During the second extension, next slide please. During the second extension request period have been released 8.9 million square meters. Identified and destroyed 26,319 landmines. Identified 47 new minefields without any minefield rickets. And that added 3 million square meters additionally. Impact of the natural phenomena. Short-term seasonal availability in some of the hazardous areas. Difficulty of access to remote mountainous areas. No minefield rickets for new minefields or inaccuracies in some of the minefield rickets, and lack of funding has caused as impeding factors for the timely completion of the Tajikistan obligation according to the Article 5 of the APMBC. Next slide, please. Land that has been released and handed over to the local communities are being used for agriculture, for using as pasture land, construction, industry, and infrastructure. As you can see from the photos released, land being used for construction of roads, villages, telecommunication stations, water pump stations, irrigation channels, for cropping rice, wheat, cotton, watermelon, melon, and for many other types of the agriculture crops. It has also been used for construction of the border, unit, and outpost, transboundary markets, bridges, and as gardens. TNMAC closely cooperates with all of the authorities and relevant ministries and agencies. Next slide, please. Tajikistan National Mine Action Program cooperated and continues to cooperate with numerous donors, international organizations, and other relevant stakeholders, such as the U.S. State Department, OEC Program Office in Dushanbe, FSD, NPA, Norway, ICRC, Red Crescent Society of Tajikistan, GICHD, and the embassies of the US, UK, Germany, and others. Next slide, please. The information management system in mine action is a crucial tool that helps us track mine action data efficiently, ensure transparency in operations, improve coordination between teams, make informed decisions. This system allows us to monitor progress in real time, manage resources effectively, report accurately on achievements, enhance safety standards. IMSMA is not just software, it's a lifeline for mine action program worldwide. It helps us save lives and restore safety to communities affected by landmines. Tajikistan was one of the first countries in Central Asian region whereby the support of the GSHDE was implemented for Operation Use of IMSMA-Co. TNMAC closely cooperates with GSHDE in using IMSMA-Co database. Next slide, please. Landmine and UXO contamination has caused that there are 892 victims. 541 of them are injured and 351 of them are killed. Around 30% of victims are children, 9% women, and 61% are men. Landmine and UXO contamination has impacted life and health of the local population, restricted access to the land of agriculture and other household and economic related purposes. TNMAC cooperates closely with ICRC, Red Crescent Society of Tajikistan, Ministry of Health of Tajikistan, with FSD, OEC, with the Embassy of UK, with the Orthopedic Factory of Dushanbe, in terms of assisting to promote support to the victim assistance activities in Tajikistan. Next slide, please. Next one. In these photos, you can see remote minefields with challenging terrain and demining activities in those hazardous areas. In 2025, FSD has used drones in Central Region for conducting survey of the hazardous areas. Next slide, please. TNMAC, in close cooperation with ICRC, Red Crescent Society of Tajikistan, FSD, OEC, USDOS, and other stakeholders, conducts AORE sessions in the landmine and ERW contaminated hazardous areas to the local population affected by the contamination. The level of casualties decreased strongly in compare with the previous years, but still contamination threatens to the health and life of the people. In 2025, we had 2 casualties and 2 people were injured. Next slide, please. In 2025, Tajikistan National Mine Action Program has reached its peak in terms of amount of teams, and there were 25 teams deployed to the fields. Next slide, please. In 2026, Tajikistan National Mine Action Program has faced a funding challenge, and due to funding constraints, amount of teams decreased from 25 to 19 teams. Currently, TNMAC cooperates closely with all stakeholders in terms of fundraising and resource mobilization. TNMAC has signed implementing partner agreement with OEC Program Office in Dushanbe for 2026-2031 period of years, with the U.S. Department of State for the period of 2026-2028, with further extension. TNMAC also participated at the signing IPA between FSD and PARTRIP. It was discussed in details cooperation mechanisms with all stakeholders. Next slide, please. Tajikistan National Mine Action Program has contributed in establishing female teams in INPA and FSD. Since 2024, every year, Tajikistan National Mine Action Program conducts TVG in gender in mine action. It was conducted also in 2026. Next slide, please. Tajikistan National Mine Action Center conducts for the staff of the HTC MOD, Republic of Tajikistan, basic demining course trainings in the training center of the TNMAC every year, before deploying them to the hazardous areas. TNMAC cooperates with Regional Explosive Hazardous Training Center as well. Survey trainings and TSTS are also conducted in the training center of TNMAC. TNMAC deploys survey and demining teams every operational year to conduct survey activities in the hazardous areas. In terms of land release operations, TNMAC closely cooperates with Ministry of Defense, National Guard, Border Troops, Committee of Emergency and Civil Defense with survey and demining teams. Next slide, please. In the next slides, 17-18, you can see landmines and UXO found. Next one. Yeah. In the next slides, you can see landmines and UXO found in different regions of Tajikistan. All identified landmines and UXO have been destroyed. Next slide, please. Next one. In the next slides, you can see monitoring and quality control of the demining operations. Quality control and monitoring is being conducted constantly. Next slide, please. In the slide 21, you can see meetings with stakeholders in terms of cooperation and assistance that have been conducted in the office of the Tajikistan National Mine Action Center. During these meetings have been discussed further steps and actions in cooperation. Next slide, please. For the current moment, 5.8 million square meters of confirmed mine-contaminated areas remains across 100 minefields. These minefields concentrated mainly on the Tajik-Afghan border, 87% of the remaining area. Communities still face daily risk in 13 districts. In 2019-2025, 8.9 million square meters released, 20,174 anti-personnel mines identified and destroyed. 2 districts announced mine-free. Tajikistan National Mine Action Program needs sustained funding to 2026-2032 to finish the job. For funding in survey, clearance, quality management, explosive ordnance risk education, and victim assistance, for partnership in modernizing information management system in mine action, mechanical assets, and NDD capacity. The overall target is a mine-free Tajikistan by the end of 2032, fully achievable with the support of the international donor community members. Next slide, please. Thank you very much for your attention.
Merci au Tadjikistan pour cette présentation détaillée. Nous voulons néanmoins appeler l'attention des différentes délégations sur la nécessité de rester dans le timing imparti afin de permettre au maximum de délégations qui souhaiteraient faire entendre leur voix de pouvoir le faire. Le secrétariat nous a informé de ce que le Yémen ne prendra pas la parole et le Cambodge fera une déclaration écrite. C'est bien ça? Merci, Cambodge. Prochaine délégation, le Zimbabwe, suivi du Cameroun.
Thank you very much, Chair, for your leadership in steering the Committee on Enhancement of Cooperation and Assistance. Zimbabwe remains firmly committed to fulfilling its obligations under the Anti-Personnel Mine Ban Convention through a nationally-led mine action program that combines government ownership, international partnerships, and coordinated donor engagement. Guided by the National Mine Action Strategy and the Communication and Resource Mobilization Strategy, Zimbabwe has continued to make significant progress in reducing contamination, releasing land for productive use, and protecting communities from the threat posed by anti-personnel mines. Despite global funding pressures, the government of Zimbabwe, the Zimbabwe Mine Action Center, and the National Mine Clearance Unit and international demining partners remain focused on achieving a mine-free Zimbabwe by 2030. Zimbabwe has strengthened national ownership of mine action by integrating mine action priorities into broader national development objectives and by maintaining direct government oversight through the Zimbabwe Mine Action Center. The government continues to finance both the Zimbabwe Mine Action Center and the National Mine Clearance Unit through the national budget, demonstrating sustained commitment to meeting its Article 5 obligations. In 2025, government disbursed approximately United States $2 million towards mine action activities and the procurement of equipment to further strengthen the national mine clearance capacity. Mine action is increasingly linked to rural development, agriculture, infrastructure rehabilitation, community safety, and achievement of sustainable development goals, ensuring that demining contributes directly to national socio-economic development. Remaining cooperation and assistance needs. While substantial progress has been achieved, significant cooperation and assistance requirements remain. Zimbabwe continues to require predictable multi-year funding to sustain current clearance capacities and accelerate completion of remaining hazardous areas. Additional support is required for procurement and replacement of mine detection and clearance equipment, capacity building in information management, quality management, and residual risk management. Continued support for victim assistance, risk education, and post-clearance development initiatives is equally important. International assistance remains essential to ensure Zimbabwe remains on track to achieve its 2030 completion target. Partners can further support Zimbabwe through long-term funding commitments, technical assistance, and continued investment in national capacity development. To achieve completion by 2030, Zimbabwe requires an estimated $36.7 million. Of this amount, approximately 2.5 million is guaranteed that it will be disbursed by government on a yearly basis up to 2030, leaving a funding shortfall of 34.2 million. Sustained donor support and innovative financing partnerships are a critical commitment that international demining operators will continue to receive their funding and continue with their demining obligations. Zimbabwe has established effective coordination mechanisms through the Zimbabwe Mine Action Center, which serves as the national authority responsible for planning, coordination, monitoring, and reporting on mine action activities. Regular stakeholder engagements is conducted through national coordination meetings, technical working group meetings, donor consultations, and operational planning sessions involving government institutions, international non-governmental organizations, demining operators, development partners, and affected communities. These mechanisms provide an established platform for dialogue, resource mobilization, and strategic decision-making. Zimbabwe's coordination mechanisms have significantly enhanced transparency, accountability, and operational efficiency. Regular information sharing enables stakeholders to monitor progress, identify challenges, and align resources with priority tasks. Technical working group meetings facilitate the exchange of best practices and lessons learned among operators, while donor engagement forums support resource mobilization and reporting. These mechanisms have strengthened national planning processes, improved operational coordination, reduced duplication of effort, and ensured that mine action activities remain aligned with national priorities and convention obligations. Remaining contamination. Zimbabwe has remaining contamination of 8.85 square kilometers, translating to 3%. Continued progress demonstrates that completion by 2030 remains achievable, provided that current operational capacities are maintained and funding levels are sustained or increased. Zimbabwe continues to pursue strengthened partnerships with bilateral donors, multilateral organizations, international non-governmental organizations, and development partners. Recent stakeholder dialogues supported by international partners have enhanced awareness of Zimbabwe's remaining needs and encouraged coordinated support. New initiatives linking humanitarian demining with sustainable development outcomes in affected districts demonstrate how mine action can generate broader social and economic benefits. A typical example of this initiative is the partnership between UNDP and Japan. Continued engagement with donors and partners will be essential to sustain momentum and achieve a mine-free Zimbabwe. In conclusion, Zimbabwe remains fully committed to fulfilling its obligations under the Anti-Personnel Mine Ban Convention. Strong national ownership, effective coordination mechanisms, and productive partnerships have enabled significant progress despite funding challenges. However, international cooperation and assistance remain indispensable to address the remaining contamination and secure completion by 2030. Zimbabwe therefore calls upon state parties, donors, and partners to continue supporting this collective humanitarian objective. I thank you.
Merci au Zimbabwe. Nous avons de bonnes nouvelles qui nous viennent de la cabine de l'interprétariat. Les interprètes nous offrent 15 minutes supplémentaires pour ce débat. Nous passons donc la parole au Cameroun, suivi du Pérou.
Monsieur le Président, conformément à votre mandat, nous sommes honorés de la façon dont vous et l'ensemble des membres conduisez les travaux de ce comité. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, le Cameroun réitère son salut à l'action du Comité sur le renforcement de la coopération et l'assistance aux victimes pour le maintien de cette question au cœur de nos engagements communs. Mon pays tient également à réaffirmer que depuis la 5e conférence d'examen, des progrès tangibles ont été accomplis dans plusieurs domaines clés, notamment les domaines de premier secours, de la prise en charge sanitaire, de la réadaptation, du cadre juridique de l'inclusion. Ces actions, s'il faut le rappeler, s'alignent pleinement sur les actions 30 à 39 du plan d'action de CERM encore, particulièrement en matière de coordination institutionnelle, d'intégration des services et de collecte de données. Monsieur le Président, tout en reconnaissant le caractère permanent des engins explosifs improvisés, qui demandent sans cesse l'adaptation des efforts et des moyens techniques et tactiques, et les défis persistants liés à l'accessibilité des zones reculées ou en crise, au Cameroun, des efforts supplémentaires en termes de renforcement de capacités matérielles, des capacités humaines et de la synergie dans l'éducation au risque des populations affectées sont nécessaires pour consolider les progrès réalisés. Nous appelons à une coopération accrue, tant technique que financière, afin d'intensifier nos actions en faveur des victimes et de bâtir un environnement plus inclusif et résilient, y compris l'institutionnalisation d'un organe national doté d'une capacité informationnelle aux standards internationaux. Par ailleurs, le Cameroun poursuit son plaidoyer en vue de la création d'un centre d'excellence du génie militaire dédié à la lutte contre les engins explosifs improvisés, de l'obtention de la certification ONU pour les autres niveaux de formation dans la lutte contre les engins explosifs improvisés et de la formation des personnels militaires de la sous-région Afrique centrale. Je vous remercie.
Merci, Cameroon. I now give the floor to Peru, followed by Zambia.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Me limitaré a 2 minutos. La cooperación y asistencia internacional constituyen pilares esenciales para la plena implementación de la Convención. En ese sentido, quiero destacar la relación bilateral entre el Perú y su vecino, el Ecuador, que se caracteriza por un elevado nivel de confianza mutua, integración y cooperación. Gracias a esta ejemplar colaboración en el ámbito del desminado humanitario, se han registrado avances significativos, particularmente en la zona de frontera, donde quedan todavía unos campos minados que esperamos haber limpiado para el año 2030 y podernos declarar país libre de las minas antipersonal. En concordancia con la acción 45 del Plan de Acción de SINRIP, ambos países, Perú y Ecuador, han desarrollado iniciativas de capacitación, entrenamiento, doctrina, planificación y ejecución de operaciones combinadas de desminado, así como asistencia recíproca en beneficio directo de las poblaciones que habitan las zonas afectadas. También en línea con la Acción 43, el Perú ha recibido valiosa cooperación de países donantes como Estados Unidos, Alemania, España, Corea del Sur, Noruega e Italia, así como del Programa de Acción contra las Minas de la Organización de Estados Americanos. De manera muy especial, el Perú continúa recibiendo el valioso apoyo técnico para el fortalecimiento de sus capacidades operativas por parte del Reino de Noruega a través de la ONG Ayuda Popular Noruega, Norwegian People's Aid, permitiendo de esta manera el incremento de nuestras capacidades operativas en la limpieza de campos minados en la zona oriental del Perú. Este respaldo contribuye directamente al cumplimiento de nuestras obligaciones con el artículo 5 de la Convención, mediante asistencia técnica al Centro Peruano de Acción contra las Minas Antipersonal, a través de la valiosa donación de detectores manuales y de visores de protección, así como con cursos especializados para los desminadores peruanos, cursos como cursos de gestión operativa, gestión de calidad y liberación de tierras. Mientras no concluyamos con la labor de desminado humanitario, el Perú solicitará todavía apoyo por parte de la cooperación y asistencia internacional para concluir a tiempo nuestras obligaciones, pero también para poder continuar con programas de educación en el riesgo de minas y campañas de sensibilización comunitaria. También necesitamos ayuda, eso sí, a largo plazo, para apoyar a las víctimas de las minas antipersonal. Muchas gracias por su atención.
Muchas gracias, Peru. I now give the floor to Zambia, followed by EU.
Thank you, Chair. Zambia acknowledges that cooperation and assistance remain a fundamental pillar of the Convention and a key driver for successful implementation of the Siem Reap Action Plan. We firmly believe that sustainable progress can only be achieved through strengthened national ownership, effective international cooperation, coordinated donor engagement, and inclusive partnerships that place affected communities at the center of mine action efforts. We recognize that affected states continue to face technical, financial, and operational challenges in fulfilling their obligations. Zambia advocates for strengthened dialogue between affected states, donor states, international organizations, and implementing partners to promote predictable, needs-based, and evidence-driven assistance. We encourage greater transparency regarding national priorities and available resources so that support can be directed where it's most needed and where it can achieve the greatest impact. Zambia continues to work closely with the Mine Advisory Group and other international partners to address residual contamination and strengthen national mine action capacities. Through this partnership, Zambia is developing a community-centered explosive ordnance risk education model that utilizes community liaison officers to engage directly with affected communities. In addition, Zambia continues to engage with international partners in survey and clearance activities aimed at addressing remaining areas of residual contamination. These partnerships demonstrate the value of coordinated support that combines national leadership with international technical expertise and resources. The Siem Reap Action Plan rightly emphasizes the importance of national mine action platforms as mechanisms for coordination, information sharing, resource mobilization, and strategic planning. Zambia believes that such platforms can significantly improve communication between affected states, donors, operators, and development partners, ensuring that assistance is aligned with national identified priorities and measurable outcomes. The challenge before us remains significant, but so too is our collective resolve and commitment. The success of the Convention depends not only on obligations undertaken by affected states parties, but also on the solidarity, cooperation, and shared responsibility of the international community. As President, Zambia remains committed to working closely with all states parties, international organizations, donor, and civil society partners to ensure that the goals of the Convention and the Siem Reap Action Plan are translated into tangible improvements in the lives of affected communities. Together, through strengthened partnerships and coordinated action, we can advance our shared commitment to a world free from anti-personnel mines and their humanitarian consequences. I thank you.
Merci. Je passe maintenant la parole à l'Union européenne, suivie éventuellement de la Belgique si le temps nous le permet.
Chair, I have the honor to speak on the behalf of the European Union and its member states. The candidate countries of North Macedonia, Montenegro, Albania, and Republic of Moldova, as well as the EFTA countries, Iceland, member of the European Economic Area, align themselves with this statement. The EU and its member states remain firmly committed to strengthening international cooperation and assistance in support of the full implementation of the Anti-Personal Mine Ban Convention and the objectives of the Siem Reap and Core Action Plan. Mine action continues to play a critical role in protecting civilians, supporting stabilization efforts, facilitating the safe return of displaced populations, enabling socio-economic recovery, and contributing to sustainable development. The European Union and its member states collectively remain among the leading global donors to mine action. In 2025, the EU committed over 200 million euros in funding to mine action worldwide, with part of this support delivered through multi-annual programs. This includes over 60 million euros to support demining in Ukraine and around 60 million for other countries, including Afghanistan, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Lebanon, Palestine, Sudan, Syria, and 100 million euros provided through multi-annual program by the European Commission Directorate for Regional and Urban Policy to complete mine clearance in Croatia, which was declared mine-free in April 2026. The EU supports over the full spectrum of mine action activities, including humanitarian demining, risk education, victim assistance, stockpile destruction, capacity building, and support for national authorities. The EU maintains its strong engagement in funding and supporting mine action worldwide and will continue to do so in the future. Moreover, the EU directly supports the implementation support units, allocating 2.7 million euros for the period 2025-2029 to contribute to the full implementation of the SWIMRIP and Core Action Plan and assist mine-affected state parties in setting up dialogues on mine clearance and victim assistance. Chair, the European Union underlines the importance of strong national ownership and responsibility in the implementation of the Convention's obligations. International assistance is most effective when it supports nationally led strategies and prioritized, realistic and evidence-based plans. We encourage affected state parties to strengthen coordination mechanisms among national authorities, donors, implementing partners and affected communities to ensure efficient use of available resources. The EU also stresses the importance of transparency, timely reporting, and regular dialogue between donor and affected states. We remain concerned by the widening gap between humanitarian needs and available financial resources for mine action globally. In this context, prioritization, operational efficiency, and innovative approaches become increasingly important. Chair, the European Union reiterates its strong support for Ukraine in addressing the massive humanitarian, environmental, and developmental consequences of Russia's war of aggression, including widespread contamination by anti-personnel mines and explosive remnants of war. The EU and its member states continue to mobilize substantial financial, technical, and operational assistance to support Ukraine's mine action response and long-term recovery. We are also deeply concerned about contaminations in countries such as Iraq, Libya, Syria, Yemen, Myanmar, as well as in the Sahel, in Nigeria, Burkina Faso, Mali, and also Ethiopia. The EU further highlights the importance of integrated mine action into broader humanitarian development and peacebuilding frameworks, including efforts linked to food security, climate resilience, infrastructure rehabilitation, and the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and the Women, Peace and Security Agenda. We also underline the importance of mainstreaming gender equality, diversity, and inclusion across all mine action programming. Chair, the European Union values the essential role played by the United Nations, the Geneva International Center for Humanitarian Demining, the International Committee of the Red Cross, other civil society organizations, and national mine action authorities in advancing convention implementation. We remain committed to fostering partnerships and enhancing cooperation at the national, regional, and international levels. The European Union will continue to assist our partners on their path towards achieving the Convention's objectives of an anti-personnel mine-free world. I thank you.
Thank you, EU. Excellencies, dear colleagues, that was the last speaker we could accommodate today. We will continue tomorrow at 10 a.m. with Mauritania, Ireland, Denmark, Germany, Slovenia, Australia, Italy, MAC, NPA, and ICBL. I thank you.